Hello and welcome back, guys. We're now starting a new story, Midoriya Izuku, Ferret-Level threat, written by Whispic. You can find author's profile link in the description. Let's begin Chapter 1, The Dead Boy Enrolls. 3 weeks ago Katsuki Bakugo hadn't meant it. Not really. The words had spilled out of him like a thunderclap, sharp, sudden, and destructive. His fists clenched at his sides, nails biting into his palms, as if the physical pain could somehow match the ache in his chest. Everything about him was aggressive, his sweat, thick with nitroglycerin-like tension, dripped from his palms, his voice, always loud and explosive, filled the space like a grenade detonating in a confined room. Why don't you just jump off the roof already? No one's gonna miss a DMN nerd like you. Izuku Midoriya's eyes widened in a way Katsuki had never seen before, no anger, no tears, no defiance. Just, exhaustion. A quiet, thick weariness that seemed to settle over him like a shroud. His gaze flicked away, as if Bakugo's words had drained the air from his lungs. And then, without a word, Izuku was gone. One moment, he was sitting there, clutching his books, the next, he had vanished from the classroom, from their social media feeds, from everyone's view. The school's quiet hum seemed to swallow him whole. His phone line was disconnected. His presence evaporated. Katsuki didn't realize what he'd done until that night. When the wind carried the faint sound of a moving truck, its engine growling like a beast, he saw Izuku Midoriya, Izuku's mother, quietly packing up her house under the cover of darkness. She didn't cry as the truck pulled away, didn't look back once. Her face remained blank, as if she had already accepted the loss. Katsuki told himself it was fine. He told himself he didn't care. Maybe it was a lie, something he whispered to himself in the dark, trying to drown out the gnawing guilt. But 3 weeks later, the headlines hit like a punch to the gut. U.A. Hero Course Class 1A receives first and only student, mysterious, Midoriya Izuku, stuns teachers in solo entrance exam. One student. What happened to the rest of them? Principal Nizu declares, quality over quantity. And then there was the photo. A grainy, shadowed image that seemed to flicker with static. But there was no mistaking the boy in the picture. Green curls in disarray, a hoodie that hung too big, probably borrowed in haste, and a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, like he was masking something deeper. The expression was familiar in a way that made Katsuki's stomach churn. Midoriya Izuku was very much alive. And Katsuki Bakugo was left with more questions than answers. Present day, U.A. High School, April 7th. The gates of U. hissed open like the maw of a sleeping beast awakening. The sound echoed through the morning air, metal grinding, a mechanical sigh, and Izuku stepped through them as if crossing into a battlefield. His hoodie was soaked through with rain, the fabric clinging to his slender frame, darkened by the storm's fury. His backpack, battered and held together with duct tape and stubborn resolve, sagged heavily on his shoulders. One shoe, laced imperfectly, bore a red smiley face hastily drawn on its toe with Sharpie, the other, held together with a zip tie, looked like it might fall apart at any moment. He moved with a quiet determination, almost like he was trying to blend into the shadows, but the stormy weather only accentuated his disheveled appearance. Standing under the overhang, arms crossed and leaning heavily against the wall, was Aizawa Shoyuta, his gaze sharp and judging, like a predator sizing up prey. His usual capture weapon, tightly coiled and draped over his shoulders, looked more like a tired serpent than a tool of justice. He sipped from a travel mug that emanated a smell so foul it could TRP paint, something that resembled pure death, or perhaps a bitter blend of rain and exhaustion. "You are late," Aizawa said, voice flat but laced with subtle annoyance. Izuku hesitated, then offered a sheepish shrug. There was traffic. A pause. Then, with a deadpan tone, "You derailed it." "I did not like how the flow was going," Izuku admitted. People needed to rethink their decisions. Aizawa blinked slowly, the faintest hint of a smirk curling his lips. "You used your quirk." "I'm still listed as quirkless, eraser," Izuku replied, voice unwavering. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Aha. Silence stretched between them, thick and unspoken, like a RBB band stretched to its limit. A distant seagull's cry echoed across the empty grounds, adding an eerie soundtrack to the morning. Aizawa took another slow sip from his mug, the grimace on his face betraying his true feelings. You're banned from touching any form of public transit from now on. Understood, Izuku said softly, shoulders sagging just a little under the weight of his burden. Classroom 1A, the ferret den, the room was eerily silent, echoing with the ghosts of students long gone. 20 desks, pristine and untouched, sat in perfect rows, each one a silent witness to the chaos that had once inhabited this space. The air was thick with a strange stillness, like a church abandoned after a funeral. Only one desk was occupied. Its owner, Izuku Midoriya, sat cross-legged on the chair, hoodie sleeves rolled up to his elbows, tinkering with a small device on the desk that hissed angrily and emitted a faint cloud of smoke. Sparks flickered as he soldered with meticulous precision, eyes flickering with a mixture of focus and fatigue. Aizawa leaned against the wall at the front of the room, watching him silently. He didn't ask what Izuku was working on, that was a lesson learned from past experiences. Instead, he kept a watchful eye, arms crossed, as if waiting for something to go wrong. You rewrote the access codes to the staff Wi-Fi, Aizawa said, voice even but with a hint of curiosity. Izuku looked up, expression neutral, wires and small parts still dangling from his hands. It was vulnerable, he said simply. Your password was SleepyKitten69. Aizawa blinked. Don't shame your homeroom teacher. You don't deserve the bandwidth, Izuku shot back, a faint smirk flickering across his face. Aizawa sighed, pulling out his phone. Then, faintly, a scuttling noise echoed from the ceiling vent. He raised an eyebrow. Are you in the walls again? Not me, Izuku said, not looking up. That's the decoy ferret. Aizawa's eyes widened. What the hell is a dash? Don't worry about it, Izuku interrupted, voice flat and unbothered. I've got everything under control. The faint sound of claws scraping and tiny paws skittering overhead filled the room, a strange, unsettling symphony to the quiet chaos of their new beginning. Group name, the U, faculty group chat, do not mute, members, Aizawa, present Mike, Midnight, Power Loader, Cementos, All Might, Recovery Girl, Snipe, Vlad King, Nizu present Mike, okay, so like hypothetically if a kid breaks into your apartment at 3 a.m., eats your leftovers without asking, and then proceeds to lecture you about government surveillance and then vanishes into the air ducts, is that a crime? Or bonding? Midnight, if it's Midoriya, it's both. Probably at the same time. Power Loader, he rerouted my lab's entire power grid yesterday. Said it was too linear. Like, what even is that supposed to mean? Cementos, he filed an architectural complaint against my walls. Cementos, my walls. As if they're the problem. Vlad King, wait, are you all seeing him in person? I thought he was a ghost. Recovery Girl, the boy's been here for 3 days now. He's settled into the vents, I suppose. Eraserhead, he lives in the vents now. Eraserhead, I'm pretending it's a metaphor. Eraserhead, it's not a metaphor. All Might, young Midoriya reminds me of myself when I was his age. Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes, you cried because your neighbor wouldn't return your yo-yo, Toshinori. Recovery Girl, he bit me when I tried to vaccinate him, in the etheric plane. Principal's office, 1:30 p.m. The room is well lit but cluttered with papers, books, and a large, cozy armchair where Nizu, the small, intelligent rat-shaped principal, sits confidently. His round glasses catch the light as he clears his throat. Today's tutoring lesson, Nizu announces cheerfully, is the ethics of psychological manipulation in government-backed institutions. Izuku Midoriya, sitting cross-legged on a plush cushion, perches eagerly, slurping from a can labeled fermented genius, a bubbly, ominous-looking beverage. His wide eyes sparkle with curiosity. Finally, he says, voice bright, something light. Aizawa, slouched against the wall with a beanbag, mutters, please stop calling this light, while nursing his fourth cup of coffee, the dark liquid swirling with fatigue. I need my enrichment, Izuku says with conviction. It's either this or slowly dismantling the hero commission from the inside. Nizu beams. Ambitious. I'm a Taurus, Izuku adds with a grin, eyes gleaming with mischief. That explains so much, Aizawa mutters, deadpan. The lights flicker ominously, Aizawa doesn't even bother to flinch. You rigged the lights to respond to sarcasm, didn't you? He asks flatly. Only yours, Izuku responds innocently. I like feedback. Training ground Omega, 3 p.m. Aizawa tosses a battered training knife toward Izuku with a look of resigned patience. Today we're running close quarters drills, he states, voice steady but firm. I've had 5 energy drinks and no lunch, Izuku responds brightly, catching the blade with a flourish. Let's dance. You're unhinged, Aizawa mutters, eyes narrowing. I'm a minor. You legally can't diagnose me, Izuku retorts, smirking. Aizawa's expression darkens as he mumbles something about Nizu's sadistic tendencies and lunges forward. The fight that ensues is brutal, fast, chaotic, and entirely illegal in at least 14 countries. Izuku moves with a predatory, almost feral grace, erratic, unpredictable, like something born from shadows. He dodges inches from harm, striking like a spider eager to evolve. At one point, Aizawa has to disengage because Izuku appears too calm, like he's not even using his quirk, like he doesn't need to. Finally, Aizawa pins him with a foot on Izuku's chest, a blade pressed lightly to his throat. I think Houdini did something like this once, Izuku gasps hoarsely. If I recall correctly, he was out of the hospital in no time. Aizawa's deadpan reply is effortless, well, that's encouraging. Chapter 2, Ferret vs. Class 1B. The morning awakening is shattered by an eruption, an explosive burst of sound and chaos that reverberates through the classroom walls. It's so sudden, so deafening, that the ceiling tiles tremble as if struck by a seismic wave. Several tiles dislodge, tumbling in slow, dusty arcs before hitting the floor with muffled thuds. Dust and debris billow upward, obscuring the room's light and filling the air with a gritty haze. A third of the students are caught in the cloud, their eyes watering, blinking rapidly as they cough and stumble to clear their vision. In the midst of the chaos, the classroom door swings open with a thunderous bang. Vlad King bursts inside, hair wildly frizzed and standing on end, as if he'd been plugged into a lightning storm. His face is flushed, eyes wide with alarm and frustration. His voice, hoarse from shouting, cuts through the dust-choked air with commanding authority. Who set off a charged smoke grenade in the hallway? His gaze sweeps the room, seeking the culprit, his fists clenched tightly at his sides. From a far corner, the classroom's desk begins to rotate, slowly, eerily, with an almost hypnotic grace. It spins on an invisible axis, smooth and silent, reminiscent of celestial bodies orbiting unseen. No wheels squeak, no hands turn, just a sleek, hypnotic whirl that defies the laws of physics, casting shifting shadows across the walls. Seated at the desk is Izuku Midoriya. He sits perfectly still, sipping from a juice box labeled definitely not poison with a calm that feels disturbingly deliberate. His other hand gently pets a tiny mechanical squirrel, its glowing red eyes flickering softly with each movement. Izuku's expression is inscrutable, eyes half-lidded, face devoid of emotion, as if he's contemplating the end of the universe rather than a classroom incident. It wasn't a grenade, he states flatly, voice devoid of remorse or agitation. It was a test. Vlad's eyes widen in confusion, his brow furrowing as he takes in the scene. His entire body tenses, trying to process what he'd just heard. A test of what, he demands, voice cracking slightly from the adrenaline. Izuku tilts his head slightly, the mechanical squirrel still cradled in his palm. Of how loud something has to be to get you to stop humming the One Piece theme song while pacing, he replies, deadpan, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. A tense silence follows. The classroom remains suspended in the strange, unsettling moment. From across the room, a quiet voice breaks the silence, a student from Class B, hesitantly raising a hand. It was getting annoying, they admit softly, voice barely above a whisper. Vlad rubs his face, frustration mounting. His shoulders slump as he runs a hand through his hair, eyes darting around the room in exasperation. He mutters under his breath, "I'm going to need so much therapy by the end of this year." 1 week earlier in the faculty lounge, Vlad King stands before a desk cluttered with papers, his eyes glued to the memo Nizu has just sent out. His expression is a mixture of disbelief and concern, eyes wide and unblinking. "Why is he joining my class?" he asks, voice trembling slightly as if the words are unsteady on his tongue. Aizawa, already sprawled on a nearby couch with a warm compress pressed to his face, lets out a long, weary sigh. His eyes peek over the edge of the mask, dark circles prominent beneath. "Because he needs socialization," Nizu cheerfully responds, stirring his tea with an elegant, deliberate motion. "Like a feral cat. You know, to teach him boundaries." Vlad's voice cracks. "He put magnets in the faculty microwave," he says, voice trembling with disbelief. "Why would he do that?" Nizu chuckles softly, a high-pitched, amused sound. From another corner, Power Loader speaks softly but with gravity. "He said it was a behavioral science experiment. He asked me if I thought time was real." Cementos, ever the pragmatist, adds with a shrug. "Was it real?" A faint voice echoes from inside the faculty mini-fridge, Izuku's. "Is he in the fridge?" Vlad whispers, "He's everywhere," eyes darting nervously. "And yes, it's just for a few lessons." Aizawa groans, flipping over onto his side. "He's in the walls, the ceiling, the closet, he's everywhere. But yes, it's only temporary." Today, Class 1B homeroom. Vlad stands at the front of the classroom, visibly tense as he surveys the students. His hands hover awkwardly over a stack of fire extinguishers, ready for action. Behind him, a whiteboard proclaims in bold, colorful letters, "Welcome, Midoriya. Please do not bite anyone." Seated next to him is Izuku Midoriya. His posture is stiff, almost robotic, shoulders hunched as if guarding himself from an invisible threat. His eyes are distant, unfocused, as if he's contemplating the universe's impending collapse. His hair is a wild, unkempt halo, framing a face that looks too serious for a 15-year-old. "Meet Midoriya Izuku," Vlad begins, voice steady but slightly strained. "He'll be joining us for certain classes." The students exchange bewildered glances, whispering behind cupped hands. One student in the back mutters, "I thought he was a cryptid," eyes wide with disbelief. "He looks young." "What is he? Like 14? Vlad, trying to keep control, mutters under his breath, "He is. Be nice. Wait, a cryptid or 14? Izuku gives a dead-eyed wave, his hand barely moving, then slowly drifts toward the back of the room, where he moves a desk, by himself, a good 10 feet away, for what he calls safety reasons. He places the juice box down on the desk, which emits a faint hiss, a subtle, ominous sound that makes some students flinch. From the crowd, a hand rises. A Class B student, nervously, clutching their uniform. Why is he here? Shouldn't he be in general studies or some facility for juvenile delinquents? Izuku remains silent, pulling out a small, handmade doll. It's an eerily detailed replica of the student who asked the question. Slowly, the doll begins to melt and distort, transforming into a grotesque, unrecognizable form. Vlad quickly intervenes, raising his hands defensively. Anyway, today we are doing Quirk strategy matchups. Partner up. Sparring matches, training gym beta, Ferret, you're with Shiva, Vlad announces, voice firm. Izuku adjusts a pair of makeshift gauntlets, crafted from scrap metal, wires, and an unyielding sense of purpose. He nods respectfully toward his partner, who looks a little nervous but eager nonetheless. Go easy on me, Class B kid number 18 offers with a nervous gulp. I don't know how to go easy, Izuku responds matter-of-factly, voice even. But I respect your optimism. The countdown begins. Begin. The sparring erupts into chaos. It's fast, brutal, and entirely illegal in most countries. Izuku moves like a shadow, erratic, unpredictable, almost intangible. His body flickers in and out of sight, seamless and silent, as if he's become a ghost slipping through cracks. He arcs behind Shiva, tapping her shoulder from behind with uncanny precision. You have a blind spot 17 degrees off your right side, Izuku murmurs conversationally, voice eerily calm. You might want to work on that. How? Shiva yells, spinning around in confusion. Have you considered mirrors? Or spiritual enlightenment? Izuku replies, deadpan. The scene is mesmerizing, an unsettling ballet of calculated chaos. He runs psychological operations on each sparring partner, gaslighting, subtle manipulations, mind games. No one gets hurt, technically, but the mental toll is evident. He whispers to Class B kid number 3, convincing him he's trapped in a simulation. To kid number 5, he whispers, I am not even here, making the boy panic and fight his own shadow. To number 2, he softly mutters, I already erased your quirk, even though he hadn't touched him. Students watch in a mixture of horror, fascination, and unease. Some whisper, is he even using a quirk? Another shivers, no one knows. I think he might be the quirk. Faculty Lounge, 4:15 p.m. Vlad bursts into the lounge, splattered with spaghetti sauce and glitter, clothing torn, hair disheveled. Why was there a spaghetti trap, he yells, eyes wide with disbelief. Aizawa, still lying on the couch, glances up lazily, unimpressed. That wasn't for you, he says simply. Then who? Power loader, Aizawa responds, gesturing vaguely toward the door. Vlad sighs heavily, rubbing his temples. Why is he like this? Aizawa shows him his phone, displaying a chaotic group chat filled with messages. The faculty group chat, do not mute, midnight, he reorganized my shoe closet by color, moral alignment, and trauma level. Present Mike, he beat me in Mario Kart with a calculator. Recovery girl, diagnosed me with burnout and left a self-care kit in my office. Nizu, I love him. So much. He's the apocalypse with homework. Aizawa, he asked if I wanted kids. Present Mike, wait, for real. Laughter and exasperation echo through the group chat, a strange chorus of chaos. Teacher dorms, 9 p.m. Aizawa softly knocks on the door of room 1A, the ferret's den, now adorned with a handmade sign. Inside, Izuku is curled in a corner, gazing out the window at the city skyline. His wild hair frames a face that looks both young and burdened, illuminated by the glow of distant streetlights. You know, Izuku says softly, voice tinged with a rare vulnerability, I think I'm having a midlife crisis. Aizawa's brow furrows, voice gentle but tired. You're 15. I might die at 30, Izuku whispers, eyes distant. Aizawa sighs, settling beside him. The city hums below, a constant, unending pulse of life and chaos. I don't know what to do with someone like you, he admits quietly. Izuku doesn't turn, voice small. I'm sorry I make things difficult. A long silence stretches between them, filled only with the distant sounds of traffic and life. Finally, Aizawa speaks softly, you don't. He pauses, then adds, you make things interesting. For the first time all day, Izuku's face softens, not into a smile, but into a quiet, contemplative expression, an acknowledgement that someone sees him, truly sees him. Chapter 3, USJ, the just screen joint. There were things Tamura Shigaraki had meticulously planned for. He'd envisioned a full class of naive, eager future pro-heroes, children with wide, untested eyes, still fresh from childhood innocence, too inexperienced to recognize the true danger until it was too late. Their youthful energy, their hurried attempts at heroism, would be no match for the chaos he intended to unleash. He'd prepared for chaos. He'd prepared for BLD. He had not, however, accounted for a gremlin in a hoodie who made direct eye contact with the Nomu and called it chonky. 10:30 a.m. Hero course bus. The vehicle was unnervingly quiet. Not the quiet of sleep or peaceful reflection, but the oppressive hush that hangs heavy with anticipation, like a predator lurking, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was the kind of silence that suggested someone was plotting something sinister, or perhaps had already committed a crime and was debating whether to confess or let the authorities stumble upon the evidence. Aizawa sat at the front, his sharp gaze fixed on the papers in front of him, the faint rustle of pages the only sound breaking the stillness. His scarf was loosely wrapped around his neck, the fabric concealing the faint tension in his shoulders. His eyes flicked over the students' names, their scores, but his mind was elsewhere, ready, always ready. Izuku sprawled across 3 seats in the back, limbs stretched lazily, a pen twirling absent-mindedly between his fingers. His notebook, titled, Plans That Will Probably Get Me Expelled, Volume 4, rested on his lap, filled with hurried sketches, doodles, and convoluted schemes. His face was calm, almost too calm, like he was already processing every possible outcome before the actual event. Present Mike, riding shotgun for moral support and comic relief, leaned forward, flashing his signature grin. His voice was light, teasing. "So, how are we feeling, kiddo? First rescue exercise. You ready to be a hero?" Izuku did not look up. His voice was flat, almost bored. "I already am." Mike chuckled, undeterred. "Oh. I rescued 6 squirrels from the principal's office ventilation system this morning. It counts." A pause. Mick's grin faltered. Wait, Nizu knew they were in there." Izuku nodded solemnly. "He named them." Aizawa's expression remained unchanged. "They were part of his business development team," he said flatly, as if that explained everything. 10:50 a.m. USJ, Facility 13 stood at the center of the sprawling indoor disaster dome, gesturing grandly at the simulated chaos around her, artificial tsunamis crashing against the walls, debris scattered as if a real catastrophe had struck. Her voice boomed, enthusiastic and proud. "Welcome to the unforeseen simulation joint. Or as we call it, the USJ. From behind her, Izuku leaned in slightly, whispering to Aizawa, voice low and sarcastic. "More like the Just Scream joint." Aizawa sighed, rubbing his temples. "Don't name the set pieces," he warned, voice tired. "It's already in the newsletter," 13 replied cheerfully, practically bouncing on her heels. Before she could launch into an explanation of the exercises, the air at the center of the plaza twisted, a swirling vortex of darkness, black as ink spilled across the sky, ripping open the calm like a wound. The temperature plummeted sharply, the air turning frosty and still. "More like a warp gate," Aizawa muttered, eyes narrowing as he uncoiled from his seated position, scarf slipping from his neck in a fluid motion. Then, everything changed. The fog descended rapidly, dense and impenetrable, swallowing the plaza in a thick curtain of white and shadow. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint crackle of static and the distant rumble of chaos approaching. Present Mick's voice came through the comms, strained. I don't remember fog being in the lesson plan." Aizawa's eyes sharpened. "That's not fog. That's a warp gate." Suddenly, from the swirling darkness, villains emerged, dark shapes moving with eerie purpose, their figures emerging like rats from a sewer. 11 a.m. USJ Ground Zero. The League of Villains spilled into the open like a plague of rats, their movements coordinated and predatory. Kurogyri led the charge, his voice smooth, self-important, as if he were announcing the arrival of a king. "We are the League of Villains," he intoned, voice echoing through the chaos. I've come here with Bo-ring, Izuku cut in, spinning a pen like a knife, eyes sharp and unimpressed. You guys rehearsed that in the mirror. The fog's swirl paused, confused. Who opens with their group name? Izuku continued, voice unwavering. At least try a cold open, my guy. Add some mystique. I'm doing an introduction dash also, you sound like an off-brand GPS, Izuku added, unimpressed. In 500 feet, you will be dismembered by our Nomu. Try again. Kurogyri faltered, visibly thrown off by the kid's audacity. Aizawa smirked slightly, eyes gleaming with a mixture of amusement and annoyance. He does that, he said dryly, arms crossed. 11:05 a.m. Chaos unleashed. The Noma descended from above with a deafening roar, a monstrous, crushing force that cracked the concrete beneath its feet. Its hulking form, muscles rippling beneath scarred skin, loomed over the chaos like an unkillable beast. Tamura Shigaraki strolled in behind it, scratching his neck, grinning with too many teeth, his eyes gleaming with madness and malice. Where's the rest of the class? He rasped, voice low and dangerous. Izuku, standing dead center in the chaos, lifted his hand, completely unbothered, almost playful. Hi. I am the class, he said simply. A long silence stretched, heavy with disbelief. Kurogyri whispered nervously, Sir. I think we messed up. Shigaraki blinked, confused and mildly irritated. You're kidding, he rasped. Nope, Izuku said cheerfully, cracking his neck with a casual snap. Budget cuts. I'm all that's left. Surprise. Tamura's eyes widened in disbelief. One kid. They only have one student. Aizawa's deadpan response cut through the chaos. Quality over quantity, he said plainly, as if that explained everything. 11:08 a.m. Let the games begin. The Noma lunged again, jaws snapping, muscles flexing for another attack. A blur of black and red shot forward, Aizawa, scarf whipping behind him like a banner of defiance. His eyes glowed fiercely as he caught the beast mid-jump, yanking it sideways with the force of a car crash into a cement pillar. Before the dust could settle, Izuku sprinted toward Kurogyri, who was desperately trying to warp away. But Izuku was quicker. He shoved a small device into the portal, a handmade gadget shaped like a traffic cone, emitting a faint, almost musical hum. Did you just dash EMP worm? Izuku explained, voice calm and precise. Built it during lunch. The portal flickered and stuttered, sparks crackling along Kurogyri's misty form. You put an electromagnetic pulse device in a villain's throat. Present Mix voice exploded from the observation deck. Why else would I major in chaos engineering? Izuku shot back, smirking. 11:11 a.m. Existential crisis. Tamura Shigaraki's eyes narrowed, fixating on Izuku with a mixture of fury and curiosity. You think you're clever, he rasped. I don't think, Izuku replied, shrugging. I know. You're a child, Shigaraki sneered. And yet, here you are. Getting clowned by one, Izuku said with a grin. The Nomu roared again, charging at Aizawa for a second time. This time, Izuku moved first. He jumped, the air twisting around him, a distortion, a ripple, a subtle folding of reality. His body landed midair, gravity redirected by his quirk, slamming the Nomu sideways into a shattered bus. Kurogyri screamed, he has a quirk. He's not quirkless. Izuku turned slowly, eyes calm and unwavering. I'm not quirkless, he said, shrugging again. Just. Schrodinger's baby god. Shigaraki took a step back, eyes wide with disbelief. No, this isn't how it was supposed to go. You were supposed to be scared, alone, powerless, he rasped, voice cracking. I was, Izuku said softly. You're a few years late. 11:15 a.m. Catastrophic mistakes were made. The Nomu, undeterred, tried one last frantic charge. Izuku held out a hand, calm and composed. With no fanfare or dramatic flourish, just a flick of his wrist, he rerouted physics around him. The Nomu froze mid-stride, legs kicking wildly, roaring into the empty sky. Gravity rejected him, flipping him upside down. The beast flailed helplessly, screaming as he was dragged back down, slammed into the earth, and floated again, suspended in a crater of his own making. Aizawa dusted off his scarf, watching quietly. "I hate to say it," he muttered, "but you're showing off." Izuku grinned. "I'm setting boundaries." 11:20 a.m. Villains in disarray. Kurogiri finally seized Shigaraki by the shoulders, voice urgent. "We need to leave. Now. He's one student." They broke reality. I broke reality first. They unbroke it. That's worse. Aftermath, Faculty Lounge, 6:30 p.m. Nizu, the ever-analytical principal, stirred his tea as the faculty gathered around in the lounge. Aizawa sat on the couch, his ribs wrapped in icy packs, eyes half-lidded with exhaustion. Recovery Girl hovered nearby, giving him a sharp look. Mike leaned over, voice hushed but amused. So he tanked the league. Alone. Aizawa's expression was unreadable. He didn't just tank them. He embarrassed them. Midnight scrolled her phone, a smirk on her face. "They're calling him the ferret of you, on the dark web." Nizu chuckled softly. "Izuku," he called cheerfully as the boy slouched in with a tray of snacks, looking remarkably nonchalant. "Traumatized villains today," Nizu said with a grin. "How do you feel?" Izuku blinked, then grinned wider, eyes bright. "Hungry." Chapter 4, Parental Control Mode activated. Faculty Lounge, April 11, 7 p.m. The atmosphere in the lounge was heavy with a chaos that only damage control, armed with baked goods, could attempt to tame. The room felt like a battlefield strewn with crumbs and half-empty snack wrappers, a makeshift peace offering to an emotional storm. Midnight had arrived bearing a tray of cookies, chocolate chip, oatmeal raisin, and a few experimental batches that suspiciously looked like they'd been shaped by a caffeinated squirrel. Her expression was serious, as if these treats were the only thing standing between sanity and complete collapse. Present Mike, ever the exuberant dad trying too hard, carried 2 packs of chamomile tea, steam rising from the cups like fragile lifelines. His energetic presence filled the room despite the tense air, like a beacon of stubborn optimism. Cementos sat in the corner, pretending to read a thick tome, but his ears twitched constantly, betraying his focus. His eyes flicked toward the gathering, subtly listening, analyzing every word, every gesture. Power Loader was already under the table, meticulously installing a reinforced, panic hatch, a heavy-duty hatch with multiple locks and emergency signage, just in case someone's emotional stability decided to take a nosedive. His brow was furrowed as he carefully measured, drilled, and secured the hatch, muttering to himself about safety protocols. Aizawa slouched on the couch, shoulders hunched, leaning back as if he'd been hit by a bus he himself had parked. His expression was a mix of exhaustion and reluctance, a man resigned to the chaos yet committed to containing it. His dark eyes flicked from person to person, waiting for the inevitable. Perched cheerily on the windowsill, Nizu sipped his tea with alarming serenity. His round glasses caught the dim light, and his bright, calculating eyes seemed to see right through the chaos, as if the room's turmoil was just a small ripple in his grand plan. "Just to clarify," Aizawa said slowly, voice low and measured, "we are doing, what, exactly?" Recovery Girl, standing nearby with her usual no-nonsense air, folded her arms. "An intervention," she stated firmly, voice like a scalpel. "You've been letting him run completely unchecked. You can't just let a trauma goblin stew in a vent system. He needs to process things." Aizawa raised an eyebrow, his tone dry. "I don't let him live in the vents. He chooses the vents." Mike leaned in, eager to add his 2 cents. "I once heard him argue with them. Like, the vents themselves. There were voices. I don't know whose. Midnight stepped closer, her expression softening but her voice firm. We've all seen the signs. The kid's brilliant, but he's clearly not okay. We have to try, Shoyuta. Aizawa rubbed his temples, a faint flicker of worry crossing his face. This is going to be a disaster. Nizu, with a cheerful smile, raised his teacup. Then we'll do what heroes always do, make it worse with teamwork. Operation, Emotional Containment, 7:30 p.m. Izuku had been summoned under the guise of post-USJ debriefing, but he sensed something was off the moment he stepped into the room. His hoodie was half chewed on one sleeve, a screwdriver peeked out of his back pocket like a holstered weapon, and he held his cursed, definitely not poison, juice box with a suspiciously wary look. He froze in the doorway, eyes narrowing as he took in the assembled faculty, so casual, so unprepared for the storm about to unfold. Is this an ambush? He asked, voice cautious, shoulders tense. No, said recovery girl, voice calm but no nonsense, like a nurse who has seen too much. Yes, Mike said brightly, a grin stretching across his face. Sort of, admitted Aizawa, voice heavy with reluctance. Izuku made a sharp turn, already suspecting a setup, but Power Loader's hand shot out, locking the door with a metallic click. Nizu beamed at him, the picture of innocence. Welcome to our first annual Feelings Fest. Kill me, Izuku muttered, shoulders sagging in resignation. The intervention begins, Midoriya, recovery girl said gently, stepping forward with her usual calm authority, we are concerned about your mental health. Izuku's eyes flicked downward, expression flat and unreadable. I'm 15, he replied, voice dull. I don't have mental health. I have Sparkle's coping mechanism Sparkles. A beat of silence. Okay, Midnight said softly, voice gentle but serious. Can you talk about them? Izuku narrowed his eyes, suspicion flickering. You want me to unpack in a circle of people who literally watched me dismantle a Noma using an existential crisis and a slingshot. Cementos put down his book, slowly, deliberately. I thought that was a hallucination. Nope, Mike said, grinning with a hint of pride. I filmed it. Aizawa rubbed the bridge of his nose, eyes tired but patient. Look. The thing is, kid. We care about you. Even when you're a little unstable. Izuku supplied, voice flat but with a hint of defiance. Terrifying, Cementos added, deadpan. Possibly a war crime waiting to happen, whispered Vlad King, who had just wandered in and immediately regretted it. Loved, Aizawa corrected sharply. We care because you matter. Even when you won't let us in. The room fell silent, the weight of the words sinking in. Izuku remained still, eyes distant, like a glass figurine on the verge of shattering. And then it got worse, so apparently the bad vibes I've been feeling are actually severe psychological distress, Izuku said suddenly, voice even but startling everyone. The statement hit like a piano falling from the sky. Everyone blinked, stunned, unsure of what they just heard. And like, beaches be like, I'm baby, but have childhood trauma and neglect like WTF do you know about being baby? You were forced to grow up from an early age. Anyway, I'm Beaches. Mike dropped his tea, eyes wide. Aizawa stared, visibly transported back to his own teenage years, dragged screaming into memories he tried to forget. Midoriya, he said slowly, voice strained, that's a lot. Izuku's face was neutral, inscrutable. You asked. I didn't, okay, fair, Aizawa admitted, rubbing his temples. I'm not emotionally unavailable, Izuku said, crossing his arms. I'm just, selectively open to people I don't think will abandon me the second I stop being useful. Oof. Midnight winced audibly. Mike hesitated, then handed Aizawa a sticky note that just said, we are so F. Later the meeting was, inconclusive. Izuku did not cry. He did not storm out. Instead, he pulled out a chart titled Reasons I Am the Way I Am and passed it around like a resume. The top 3 reasons listed, mother listed me as quirkless for safety. I've been psychologically alone since age I'm not allowed to join group therapy because I kept making the other kids spiral. There was also a doodle of a crying frog holding a sword, looking fiercely determined. I'm trying, Izuku said quietly as the meeting wrapped up. I just don't know how to be normal. You're not supposed to be normal, Aizawa said, walking him back to the dorms. You're supposed to be okay. Izuku hesitated, voice small. I think I forgot what that feels like. Aizawa sighed, shoulders relaxing slightly. Well, that's what this team is for. I thought I was a solo mission, Izuku mumbled. Not anymore, kid. Meanwhile, faculty group chat present Mike, I think we emotionally waterboarded a child midnight, he emotionally waterboarded US Cementos, I'm re-evaluating my life choices recovery girl, he built a personality profile for each of us in real-time power loader, he anger cried into my toolbox Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes Aizawa, I wants kids but I wouldn't be a good dad. Aizawa, I think you'd be a great dad, Zawa. Present Mike, so should I find some adoption forms? Everyone, Broken Heart Place of Worship Chapter 5, Quirk Assessment Day, definitely not an accident on paper, it was the simplest exercise, 1 student, 7 trials, and 0 surprises. It was a test designed to be straightforward, predictable, almost boring in its lack of complication. The kind of routine check that should have gone off without a hitch, no unexpected variables, no chaos, just a clean, neat demonstration of capability. It was supposed to be impossible for anything to go wrong. And yet, that one student was Izuku Midoriya, and had yet to accept the fundamental law of his existence, if something can be broken, he will break it. If something can't be broken, he will convince it to self-destruct for moral reasons. 7 a.m. Jim Gamma Vlad King paced nervously, running his hand through his hair for the 10th time, eyes darting anxiously across the room as if expecting a disaster to spontaneously erupt from the ceiling. His voice was strained with worry. I reinforced the gym last night, he muttered, voice tight with effort. We upgraded the heat shielding, rewired the power grid, triple-checked the structural integrity before he could finish, Aizawa cut him off, voice flat and unimpressed. You used duct tape and prayer. Vlad's expression flickered, defensive. Very strong duct tape, he insisted, voice slightly defensive. From across the room, present Mike stood beside a freshly cleared obstacle course, arms crossed, a grin plastered on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. I still think we should have made him do it in the rain, he said, voice light but with a hint of mischief. Just to be safe. Aizawa shot him a tired look. It's indoors. I know what I said, Mike grinned wider, voice playful. Aizawa sighed deeply, turning away. He cast a quick glance at Power Loader, who was already kneeling under the table, fiddling with tools. What about the smart vending machine? He asked, voice losing all patience. Power Loader muttered bitterly, still sentient. Calls me father, asks if it has a soul. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Unfortunate, he muttered, tone grim, as if contemplating the universe's cruel sense of humor. 7:30 a.m. Arrival of the Ferret Izuku entered Gym Gamma, shoulders hunched, hands buried deep in the pockets of his hoodie. His face looked like he'd slept for 12 minutes, eyes dull and rimmed with exhaustion, hair tousled from restless sleep or perhaps just a lifetime of neglect. His hoodie sleeve was half chewed, a telltale sign of his nervous energy, and a screwdriver jutted out of his back pocket like a holstered weapon, ready, always ready for the chaos he might unleash. He paused at the threshold, eyes narrowing as he surveyed the gathering faculty, who looked far too relaxed for the impending storm. Why do I feel like I'm on trial, he muttered, voice husky, glancing around as if expecting the tribunal to judge him at any moment. You're not, Aizawa said, voice calm but serious, standing with a stance that said he was prepared for anything. This is a routine evaluation. Routine. Izuku echoed, suspicion creeping into his tone. Well. Technically a containment drill, Midnight added softly, her voice soothing but with an underlying seriousness. "We need to figure out your official quirk classification," Recovery Girl said gently, stepping closer, her eyes kind but firm. "You've never been properly registered, and since you entered early, because my middle school literally kicked me out for making a chemistry lab in the music room." Izuku shot back, voice edged with tired sarcasm. "You turned an oboe into a grenade," Mike muttered under his breath, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Semantics," Izuku said with a shrug, voice indifferent but tinged with frustration. 8 a.m. First trial, the ball throw. Aizawa tossed Izuku a soft ball-sized orb, precise and clinical. His tone was matter-of-fact. "Start with a basic test. Throw this as far as you can using your quirk." Izuku caught it lazily, eyes narrowing as he examined the sphere with a half-hearted interest. "Define quirk," he said, voice calm but inquisitive. Aizawa blinked, caught off guard. "Anything that comes out of your very concerning ability to break reality like it owes you money," he replied, voice flat. "Cool," Izuku muttered, inhaling deeply, focusing. He aimed, then flicked the ball forward, only for it to defy expectations entirely. Instead of traveling outward, it shot straight up, ascending like a rocket, higher and higher until it vanished into the sky. The tracking device embedded inside the sphere began to scream, unable to compute the arc. The screen sputtered, then finally displayed, distance, Y ascending past satellite range. Seek divine counsel. Everyone in the room stared. Power Loader's eyes went wide, muttering, "That's impossible." Izuku shrugged. "Gravity is a capitalist construct," he said casually, voice full of unshakable confidence. 8:20 a.m. The sprint Cementos called out, voice steady. "Standard 50-meter dash. You'll be timed." Izuku rolled his neck, stretching lazily, looking relaxed. When the buzzer sounded, he took a single step, then just walked. Casually, like he was headed for the kitchen for a snack, not a race. And then, another Izuku blinked into existence at the finish line, the original nowhere to be seen. Aizawa's eyes widened in disbelief. "Did you just displace yourself through time?" he asked, voice tinged with horror. "I call it the Schrödinger stride," Izuku said, brushing his hoodie off with a casual hand. "I exist both at the start and finish until I decide which is real." "Do you ever just run like a normal human?" "Absolutely not," Izuku replied with a grin, eyes shining with mischief and a hint of challenge. 8:45 a.m. The grip strength test. Izuku approached the machine, a challenge in his stance. He cracked his knuckles, then gripped the bar with a determined expression. The gauge immediately read 137 kilograms, then sparks flew, the machine shuddered violently, and finally displayed a crying emoji before powering down with a hiss. "It gave up," Vlad whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. "I didn't do anything." Izuku protested, eyes innocent. "You're radiating menace," Mike said, narrowing his gaze. "I'm just standing," Izuku insisted, shoulders squared. "You're standing like you've planned 6 revolutions and know the name of every bird within a 5-mile radius," Mike added, voice full of awe and a dash of fear. "That's not fair." "I only know most of them," Izuku said, voice innocent, but the smirk on his face betrayed him. 9:15 a.m. The agility test. They set up an elaborate parkour course, floating platforms, narrow beams, rushing wind gusts, and flickering lights. Izuku navigated it with a precision that defied logic, finishing in 3 seconds. Backwards, blindfolded, and while solving a Rubik's Cube. "How?" Nizu asked, smiling brightly, "do you manage that?" "I rearranged the wind patterns to increase my aerial velocity," Izuku said casually, like it was just another afternoon activity. "Also, I calculated the beam angles 3 nights ago and practiced them in my dreams." Midnight looked visibly upset, her brow furrowed. "He's not a student," she muttered with a mixture of admiration and despair. "He's a side quest." 10 a.m. Final trial, quirk classification battle simulation. Aizawa explained, voice calm but serious. This is a mock combat zone. Use your abilities to escape the scenario and reach the extraction point. Izuku nodded, then disappeared from the starting zone. 17 seconds later, chaos erupted. The room caught fire, the simulated environment twisted and shifted, and the intercom suddenly crackled with an eerie lo-fi beat, villain-themed, of course. Did you program the simulation? Power Loader yelled, panicked. No, Izuku called from inside the wall, voice muffled but confident. I gaslit the AI into reprogramming itself. The vending machine chimed, I'm filing a complaint, in a robotic tone. Aftermath, Faculty Lounge, 12 p.m. Most of the staff sat quietly, clutching ice packs either for their bodies or their minds, trying to process the whirlwind of chaos and revelations. Nizu, ever cheerful, chirped, he certainly has a unique profile. Cementos muttered, reality-manipulating godchild isn't a legal quirk name. Mike nodded enthusiastically. It should be. Aizawa, eyes dull and distant, stared into the middle distance, as if contemplating the end of days. We need to file something, Midnight said quietly. He can't just keep being quirkless on record. That's not safe. Or accurate. Or moral. Nizu, ever the optimist, offered, I'll write the classification. What about parareal perception-based constructive override? Everyone looked at him, then at each other, realizing the magnitude of what they'd just witnessed. Mike shook his head slowly. It's 5 words for don't PSS him off. Exactly, Aizawa said softly, staring into space. Later that night, dorms Aizawa quietly knocked on Izuku's door, which was slightly ajar. He pushed it open gently, eyes landing on the figure inside, hoodie pulled up, shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. You good? Aizawa asked softly, voice steady and reassuring. Just thinking, Izuku replied in a hushed tone. About. Izuku hesitated, then whispered, if I ever lose control of my quirk, if I ever slip. Aizawa stepped closer, steadying himself. He placed a hand on the doorframe, voice calm but firm. If that happens, we'll stop you. And then we'll help you. In that order. Izuku blinked, eyes glossy, then nodded slowly. Thanks, Dad. The door shut quietly behind him. Aizawa stood there for a long moment, shoulders heavy, before pulling out his phone, contemplating the weight of what had just transpired. Aizawa, he called me Dad. Present Mike, loudly crying face Midnight, I'm printing shirts. Power Loader, we are in so deep. Cementos, would burn the world down for that kid Nizu, smiley face. Chapter 6, Hero Costume Day, or, Why Does He Have a Cloak? The Hero Costume Department had one rule, within reason. It was printed on every requisition form, in bold, underlined font. It was the last desperate plea of designers clinging to sanity as 15-year-olds requested battle armor with built-in speakers, flamethrowers disguised as scarves, or, once, a grappling hook made entirely of rhinestones. But nothing, could have prepared them for Izuku Midoriya's costume request. Because Izuku didn't request a costume. He submitted a manifesto. 7 a.m. Support Department, Design Lab 2C Power Loader stared at the paper in his hands like it had insulted his lineage. The blueprint read, Midoriya, Hero Suit Proposal, Base Layer, Reinforced Carbon Weave Bodysuit with Fluid Thread Stitching, Resistance to Fire, Electricity, Psychic Incursion, and Low to Moderate Divine Smiting Add-on, Tactical HRNSS with 17 pockets, at least 3 of which must be metaphysically inaccessible cape, yes. Cloak, also yes. Mask, optional, but must strike fear into the hearts of godless men. The color scheme, you ever seen a dead star? That, but more haunting. Back logo, a stylized ferret with a knife. There was also a handwritten postscript, I must look like I crawled out of an existential horror novel but stayed for the vibes. Power Loader turned slowly. Is this a joke? He asked. Izuku, lounging in the corner sipping tea labeled anxiety fuel, extra bold, smiled serenely. I never joke. I only commit. 9 a.m. Staff Lounge, a.k.a. the emotional fallout shelter. Why does he want both a cape and a cloak? Present Mike whispered. Because he can, Midnight muttered, scrolling through the 42-page PDF Izuku had attached. I'm not worried about fashion, Aizawa said, voice already dead inside. I'm worried about how many times he used the phrase, aesthetic intimidation. He said his look is a narrative threat, Recovery Girl added. He said he wanted to weaponize vibes, Cementos offered. Nizu was already approving the budget increase. 11 a.m. Costume unveiling, the doors to the training center hissed open. Silence fell. And then, he stepped through the mist. Izuku's costume wasn't flashy. It did not glow. It did not scream, future #1 hero. It whispered. A long black cloak, hood drawn up, dripped behind him like living shadow. Beneath it, tactical armor, low profile, matte green with gray accents, interwoven with symbols that didn't seem to stay still if you looked too long. His gloves were fingerless. His boots made no sound. And on his chest, the silhouette of a ferret holding a dagger. His mask hung at his hip, skull-shaped, metallic, with LED eyes that flickered ominously. The expression was somewhere between polite curiosity and your sins are known. He looks like a cult leader, Vlad King whispered. No, Midnight said softly. He looks like a main character. Group chat, UA faculty group chat, do not mute, present mic, okay. Real talk. Present mic, I love this kid but I'm 85% sure he just cursed my crops by making eye contact. Midnight, he looks like if a tarot deck came to life and asked me about my childhood. 13, I know him not on here much. 13, but is anyone with him at the moment? 13, because I can hear something. 13, in the walls. 13, is it him? Midnight, I would say yes. Cementos, I just saw the cloak twitch. It twitched. Aizawa, it's fine. He earned it. Aizawa, he deserves to look like an eldritch cryptid with a trauma budget. Aizawa, we are not questioning it. Power loader, he installed a moral compass into his gauntlets. Power loader, IT buzzes when he lies. Nizu, paw prints aesthetics matter. Paw prints 12 p.m. The functional test. Izuku, Aizawa's voice drifted quietly from the observation deck, steady and measured, cutting through the ambient hum of the training facility. His gaze was sharp, eyes narrowing slightly as he watched the scene below. This is supposed to be a movement and combat stress test. We need to see if the outfit holds up in real action. Izuku responded calmly, voice even, as he crouched atop a mock urban rooftop. The surface beneath him was textured with gritty, simulated concrete, cold and rough against his skin. His hood was pulled low, blending into the shadows. Eyes focused on the field below. He stared down at the test environment, a sprawling, artificial battlefield littered with sensor drones hovering like watchful insects, combat bots whirring and clanking with mechanical menace, and one poor crash test dummy named Kevin, who had already been battered beyond recognition, limbs splayed and sensor sparking. What's your plan? Aizawa's voice was clipped, professional, but behind his calm exterior, a faint curiosity flickered. Izuku tilted his head, a slight smile curling at the corner of his mouth. His expression was calm, thoughtful, as if contemplating an abstract idea. I'm going to haunt them, he said softly, almost whispering into the wind. A pause. Then, the exercise began. The lights dimmed abruptly, plunging the field into shadow and flickering glow. Shadows stretched long and sinister, and the air thickened with the scent of burnt electronics and ozone. The smoke rolled in, swirling and choking the air, obscuring the field in a ghostly fog. And then, a subtle shift, like a shadow slipping through an unseen tear in reality. Izuku was gone. Not teleported. Not sped up. Just, absent. The space where he had been was empty, as if he had dissolved into the ether. Until, with a whisper-soft sound, he reappeared directly behind a sensor drone, his figure like a specter emerging from the darkness. He leaned in close, so close that the faint hum of his quirk seemed to ripple through the air, and whispered, "Boo." In an instant, the drone erupted in a shower of sparks and debris, malfunctioning spectacularly. Kevin the dummy, already battered and battered again, was launched into the air with a loud, mechanical squeal, limbs flailing as if caught in a violent gust. Nearby, a vending machine, an old, battered relic, began to weep openly, its digital display flickering erratically as if overwhelmed by the chaos. By the end of the exercise, the field was a scorched wasteland of melted plastic, scorched metal, and shattered electronics. The scoring system, glitching and flickering, emitted a strange, electronic wail, then, unexpectedly, began to cry in binary, a haunting digital sob echoing across the field. And amid the wreckage, a ferret, its origin unclear, its presence unexplainable, nestled in the cloak's hood, curling up peacefully as if it belonged there all along. Aizawa sighed, shoulders relaxing with a mixture of resignation and quiet approval. "It works," he said simply, voice low and steady. Later, dorms, 9 p.m. Izuku sat on the rooftop, hoodie pulled down, legs swinging freely over the edge into the darkness. The city skyline stretched out before him, muscular towers, glowing billboards, the distant hum of life below. His cloak was bundled beside him, crumpled and layered, a silent fortress of shadow and symbolism. Aizawa sat beside him, holding a thermos in one hand and 2 cups in the other, the quiet crackle of the night wrapping around them like an old, familiar blanket. "You happy with it?" Aizawa asked, nodding at the cloak, his gaze steady but gentle. Izuku's voice was soft, thoughtful. "It's more than a costume," he said quietly. "It's armor. Identity. Safety. If I look like a problem, fewer people will try to make me one." Aizawa did not respond immediately. He simply looked out over the dark skyline, eyes distant, taking in the city's faint glow. Then, softly, he said, "You know, we wore scarves back in my class. Capture gear." Izuku tilted his head, a faint smile touching his lips. "I'm not good with rope," he admitted softly. "I prefer narrative symbolism." A beat of silence stretched between them, heavy but comfortable. Then, Aizawa's voice softened, almost tender. "I'm proud of you, you know." Izuku blinked, caught off guard. He looked away, biting the inside of his cheek, a faint blush creeping into his face. "Thanks, Dad," he whispered, voice barely audible. Aizawa turned his gaze back to the city, exhaling a slow, steady breath. "I'll take care of you," he said quietly, "as long as you let me." A long pause. Izuku's voice was hesitant, almost uncertain. "Might be a while." Aizawa chuckled softly, a rare warmth in his tone as he wrapped his arms around his problem child. "Good." Chapter 7, Staff Room Roulette, or, Who Let the Ferret In? There were some places in U, where students simply did not go. The underground vault. Off limits. Doors reinforced with steel, guarded by complex security systems that hummed and flickered with warning lights. The very air inside was thick with secrecy, the scent of old metal and dust lingering like a curse. The staff-only supply annex. Restricted. Its entrance concealed behind a shimmering, high-tech barrier, accessible only by those with clearance, and even then, only with a special key or a precise code. The faint hum of machinery and the faint scent of industrial cleaning fluid drifted from within, warning intruders to stay away. And the break room hidden behind Cementosa's bookshelf. Oh, that was a legend. Accessible only through an elaborate pressure-triggered panel that demanded 3 knuckle knocks and a quote from some obscure French poetry, an insidious puzzle only the most dedicated or foolish dared to solve. It was a place where no student had ever set foot, a clandestine haven for staff and secrets. Which was, of course, unfortunate. Because Izuku Midoriya had just moved in. 6:12 a.m. hidden faculty break room, somewhere deep beneath you, A. The door swung open with a faint, almost lazy, wheeze, revealing a hidden world. Present Mike, yawning widely, pushed through, eyes still half-lidded from sleep, his expression a blend of exhaustion and curiosity. The scent of stale coffee and faintly burnt toast wafted out as he stepped inside, anticipation already building for some caffeine-fueled breakfast. But what greeted him was, a fortress. Pillow walls, piled high and uneven, creating cozy, makeshift barricades that looked like they'd been built by a team of sleep-deprived children. Fairy lights draped haphazardly across the ceiling, their bulbs flickering softly, casting a warm, flickering glow that danced on the walls and made the space feel alive with quiet magic. A kettle sat on a small, battered hot plate, gently steaming, its whistling sound soft but persistent, an invitation for tea or perhaps something stronger. And in the center of it all, curled up like a medieval gremlin prince, sat Izuku Midoriya. His hoodie was pulled up over his head, the fabric slightly rumpled from sleep and mischief. His expression was focused, eyes flicking over a tablet with intense concentration, fingers tapping and scrolling. He was wrapped in a heated blanket, thick and fluffy, like a cocoon spun from warmth and chaos. His skull-shaped mug, labeled, "My feelings have teeth," was cradled in one hand, steam rising from the dark liquid inside, swirling upward in lazy tendrils. Mick's eyes widened. His mouth opened slightly, a gasp caught somewhere between surprise and horror. He screamed, loud and unfiltered, the kind that made the walls seem to shake. And suddenly, from a corner, one of the tiny, vesty-clad squirrels, with a serious expression, threw a cashew directly at him, the nut sailing through the air before bouncing off his forehead with a soft thud. The room fell into stunned silence, the quiet hum of fairy lights and the gentle bubbling of the kettle the only sounds. Mick's mind was racing, trying to process what he'd just seen, an illicit fortress, a secret sanctuary of chaos and cuteness, hidden away in the depths of you. Where only one student dared to claim territory. And that student, it seemed, was perfectly at home. Mike screamed. 6:30 a.m. Faculty group chat. Present Mike, the ferret has breached the inner sanctum. Midnight, what power loader, which sanctum? Mike, the break room. The sacred break room. Cementos, impossible. I sealed that room behind a bookshelf. Mike, well guess what cement? Jesus, he solved your escape room. Aizawa, is he eating my special soba? Mike, bro. Mike, he has a kettle. Mike, the tea is ethical. I don't even know what that means. Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes. I gave him the key. Nizu, paw prints, he earned it. All Might, lurking silently for the past 3 days. I, too, have seen the tea. It judged me, sad face. 7 a.m. Confrontation. Power loader stormed into the secret break room with dramatic flair, his footsteps echoing softly against the uneven, hidden floor. The door swung open with a faint squeal of hinges, revealing a space that was as much a fortress as it was a chaos playground. His sharp, focused gaze immediately scanned the room, searching for signs of intrusion or chaos, any hint of a squirrel invasion, a misplaced object, a sign of Izuku's latest mischief. You, he bellowed, voice reverberating through the tiny, cluttered sanctuary, eyes blazing with righteous fury. The room seemed to shudder at his outburst, fairy lights flickering slightly under the force of his presence. Izuku, sitting comfortably on a beanbag that definitely had not been there the week before, did not look up. His expression was calm, an eerie serenity that contrasted sharply with Power Loader's fiery indignation. He took a slow sip from a skull-shaped mug labeled, "My feelings have teeth," steam curling from the dark liquid like a warning. You infiltrated my coated perimeter, Power Loader hissed, eyes narrowing as he stepped closer, wary of any sneaky squirrels lurking nearby. His voice was low, deliberate, each word dripping with suspicion and annoyance. The kid gazed at him from the beanbag with an innocent, almost bored look, eyes half-lidded, a slow smirk curling at his lips. It was too easy, Izuku said softly, voice even and unhurried, like he was commenting on the weather rather than invading his workspace. Power Loader's jaw clenched. You deactivated my biometric pad, he hissed, voice sharp with frustration. His fingers twitched at his sides, itching to disable or destroy anything that looked remotely suspicious. I guessed the password, Izuku replied casually, tilting his head with a faint, amused smile. It was, Tooldad 2020. His tone was light, almost playful, but beneath it, there was a dangerous undercurrent, an unsettling confidence that made Power Loader's stomach tighten. The room's tense silence was broken only by the faint hum of the hot plate, the crackle of fairy lights, and the soft rustle of the blanket wrapped around Izuku's shoulders. Power Loader's voice cracked, hoarse from suppressed anger. Shut up. Izuku, unbothered, reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled out a crumpled, handwritten note, an official-looking ID badge. He held it up with a flourish. Izuku Midoriya, emotional support ferret and Nizu's favorite, he announced proudly, as if revealing a badge of honor. Power Loader's eyes widened in disbelief, his face twisting into a mixture of incredulity and horror. I did not sign off on that, he snapped, voice trembling with a mixture of outrage and disbelief. Before he could protest further, a new presence materialized, an impossibly cheerful, tiny goblin in a tuxedo, emerging from nowhere with a grin that stretched across its face like a mischievous imp. Nizu, Izuku said, with a bright, innocent smile, he's on the roster now. Benefits and everything. Nizu nodded sagely, as if this was the most natural thing in the world. He's on the roster, the small creature said, voice high-pitched and chipper, with benefits. And, benefits. Power Loader's eyes widened further. Benefits. Izuku's smile grew wider. I get dental, he said casually, and trauma leave. The room fell into stunned silence, the air thick with disbelief, chaos, and the faint scent of confusion. 8 a.m. Staff Ward declared Power Loader, eyes gleaming with a mischievous light, stepped forward with a determined stance, fists clenched. His voice was low but fierce, full of newfound resolve. I challenge you to a prank war, he declared, eyes bright with devious intent. Izuku tilted his head, a faint grin curling on his lips, eyes gleaming with curiosity and anticipation. Bold of you, he replied smoothly. But I accept. Aizawa, passing by with a half-eaten granola bar, muttered without slowing his pace, voice flat and resigned. You're on your own. If he turns you into a toaster, I'm not getting involved. His words hung in the air like a warning, an unspoken plea for sanity amid the chaos. Day 1, Operation, Glitterstorm Power Loader, ever the meticulous technician, had spent the night before orchestrating his masterpiece of chaos engineering, a glitter trap designed to transform Izuku's dorm door into a shimmering disaster zone. Every detail had been evaluated, the pressure trigger, the timing, the explosive force, each carefully calibrated for maximum glittery chaos. As Izuku's cautious fingers grasped the doorknob, the trap triggered with a controlled, explosive burst. A rush of compressed air, like the release of 1,000 tiny springs, erupted from the doorway. A blinding cloud of glitter exploded outward, filling the hallway with shimmering particles that reflected every flicker of light and every startled face in a kaleidoscope of shifting, sparkling hues. The shrieks and screams erupted instantly, students and staff alike frantically trying to shield themselves from the cascade of glitter. Some ducked behind desks, arms shielding their faces from the dazzling storm. Others froze, eyes wide and mouths agape, as the once ordinary corridor was now a glittering disaster zone. The glitter clung to every surface, every doorframe, every face, turning the entire space into a shimmering nightmare. Later, Power Loader, retreating to his cluttered workshop to assess the damage, opened his toolbox with a mixture of pride and dread. His hand reached for a wrench, but instead, he found a single potato, plump, warm, and faintly glowing with an unnatural light. He blinked, uncertain, and reached out to touch it. The moment his fingers made contact, the potato erupted into a swirling cloud of fog, swirling around him like ghostly whispers of a forgotten world. The fog was accompanied by a chorus of silent, ghostly laughter echoing in his ears, as if the universe itself was mocking his efforts. And from the corner of his eye, he saw the vending machine, an old relic standing silently, its digital display flickering erratically. Its pixelated tears rolled down its screen, silent and mournful, as if mourning the chaos it had just witnessed. Day 3, Power Loader's downfall. The Ferret Army, now a relentless, trained force of chaos, decided to retaliate in ways no one could have imagined. No one knew how Izuku had managed to train them, no one dared ask, afraid of the answer. Power Loader, exhausted after a long day, returned to his quarters expecting nothing more than a quiet moment to breathe. Instead, he was met with a sight so bizarre it froze him in place: 300 photographs, meticulously printed and labeled with precise handwriting. They depicted him, mid-sneeze, mid-battle, mid-sigh, each one frozen in time, capturing his most human, most vulnerable moments. Every photo shimmered with an eerie, unnatural brilliance, glitter embedded into the paper, catching the faintest glimmers of light, turning each image into a tiny, glowing star. And each one carried a scent, an odd, bittersweet mixture of cinnamon and regret, that filled the room with a strange aroma, nostalgic yet unsettling. The scent seemed to cling to the photographs themselves, as if the universe had decided to bathe him in 1,000 tiny stars and memories he couldn't quite grasp. He stared at the collection, a rising dread building inside him. How had Izuku managed this? How had he trained an army of ferrets to carry out such a bizarre, relentless campaign? The questions echoed in his mind, unanswered, as he slowly realized that he had become the unwitting star of Izuku's most chaotic, most elaborate performance yet. Meanwhile, Midnight opened her locker, expecting a quiet moment of routine. Instead, she triggered a hidden confetti cannon, and an explosion of colorful paper erupted from within. Confetti and glitter swirled in the air, swirling like a celebration gone slightly off course, bright reds, blues, and golds falling like a chaotic, shimmering rain. "Oh, cute," she murmured softly, a faint smile flickering on her lips as she brushed the glitter from her hair and shoulders. Her fingers trembled slightly, caught between amusement and exasperation. But her smile faded as the confetti settled, revealing a tiny, inconspicuous speaker nestled among the remnants. A distorted whisper, muffled yet unmistakable, emanated from it. "You peeked in." Her eyes widened in disbelief, her heart sinking as embarrassment and despair flooded her chest. Tears prickled at her eyes, and her entire body felt heavy with the weight of Izuku's relentless mischief, an invisible storm of chaos and cuteness she couldn't escape. Aizawa, passing by in the corridor, noticed her distress and silently handed her a tissue, his expression softening in an unspoken gesture of understanding. "Be glad he did not target your wardrobe," Aizawa said quietly, voice low and dry. "He once replaced all my black shirts with slightly darker black shirts and said nothing." His lips twitched into a faint, bemused smirk, recalling the absurdity of it all. Midnight sniffled, her voice trembling with frustration and a faint, reluctant affection. "He's evil," she whispered, eyes brimming with a mixture of annoyance and admiration. Aizawa's usual stoic expression softened just a little, a faint flicker of warmth shining behind his eyes, an acknowledgement of the relentless chaos that was Izuku Midoriya. Present Mike, 1 hour later when Hisashi was leaving the staff room, his eye caught something in the mirror. Turning around, he found a sticker on his back that said, "Microphone volume, unchecked police car light stability, concerning sparkling heart vibes, immaculate." He left it on. 10 p.m. Rooftop détente. "Okay," Power Loader admitted, sitting next to Izuku under the stars. "You win." "I know. Is it always like this in your head?" Izuku thought about it. "Louder. Funnier. But yeah. This is peace, for me." A pause. "You scare the hell out of us sometimes, kid." Izuku leaned back on his hands, eyes half-lidded. "Yeah. I scare me, too." 10:30 p.m. Faculty group chat. Power Loader, "Okay. He can keep the room." Power Loader, "But tell the squirrels to stop flipping me off." Nizu, "Paw Prince, they have autonomy now." Mike, "Wait, they what? Cementos, I think they formed a union." Midnight, "Tell them I'm sorry about the glitter thing." Aizawa, "The room's his." Aizawa, "He's earned it." Aizawa, "And he cleaned it." Aizawa, "Also." Aizawa, the tea is actually pretty good. Chapter 8, The Sports Festival, Ferret Edition. The Sports Festival was more than an event, it was an institution, an omnipresent spectacle that loomed over the hero society like a shining beacon and a chaotic carnival at once. The sprawling stadium pulsed with life, massive floodlights cast a brilliant, almost blinding glow over the arena, their hum vibrating through the air. The faint scent of freshly popped popcorn, mixed with the sharp tang of sweat and anticipation, drifted in the breeze, filling every inhalation with a heady mix of excitement and tension. The crowd's murmur was a low, constant hum, an ocean of voices, a wave of whispers and shouts, punctuated by the sharp click of cameras and the crackling of microphones. Every seat was packed, every face turned toward the center stage, eyes bright with eager curiosity and expectation. The announcers' voices boomed and bounced off the stadium's walls, exaggerated and energetic, promising a showcase of youth, strength, and unhinged chaos. Lights flickered and danced, flashing in sync with the pounding hearts of thousands. The cameras captured every twitch, every bead of sweat on brows, every clenched fist and wide-eyed gaze. This was the moment when Hero Society's future was on display, a spectacle meticulously designed to dazzle, to inspire, to captivate. And yet, amid this sea of eager spectators, the spotlight was fixed on one lone figure. The crowd's collective gaze focused on the cloaked enigma, an unassuming, yet terrifying silhouette. The first true shadow of the next generation of heroes. 1 week before the festival, absolutely not, Izuku's voice cut sharply through the tense, hushed atmosphere of Nizu's office. It was a voice that carried the weight of unwavering resolve, calm but firm, like a blade cutting through fog. His eyes were locked onto the tiny, smiling figure of Nizu, whose tiny face was lit with a mischievous sparkle, sipping his tea with innocent glee. Izuku sat rigid in his chair, arms crossed tightly across his chest, the muscles in his shoulders tense. His gaze was unwavering, burning with conviction, every line of his posture radiating a quiet, unyielding defiance. The faint scent of his sweat mixed with the faint aroma of herbal tea, filling the room with an oddly soothing yet tense atmosphere. "Nizu," he said, voice low but edged with a quiet fury, "you can't make me participate. There are laws. There's the Geneva Convention. There's decency." His words felt heavy, like stones, pressing into the air, making the room seem smaller, tighter, as if even the walls were shrinking from the force of his conviction. Nizu's tiny face lit with a mischievous grin, eyes twinkling with an unrepentant sparkle. "Participation is mandatory," he chirped, ignoring the protest. His voice was cheerful, almost sing-song, as if he found the entire idea amusing. "Besides, think of the marketing value. The mystery. The drama. The live audience reactions when you say things like 'I am the end of your karma arc.'" Izuku's eyes widened as disbelief flickered across his face, eyebrows rising in exasperation. "I am not some cryptid for your brand, Nizu," he muttered, voice rising slightly with frustration. His fists clenched momentarily, trembling with the effort to stay calm. From the corner, Power Loader muttered, still engaged in the tedious task of picking glitter out of his hair, voice muffled yet unmistakably annoyed. "He absolutely is," he said with a sigh, voice tinged with weary resignation. "He's a walking chaos agent, a glitter-infused nightmare, and now he's on the roster." His gaze flicked toward Izuku with a mixture of annoyance and reluctant admiration. Elsewhere, across Mizudafu in a grand, luxurious house nestled in the heart of Mizudafu, Bakugo Katsuki sat on his bed, eyes glued to the flickering screen of his television, the volume muted low but the tension thick in the air. His hand clenched around a half-eaten sandwich, crumbs falling onto his sheets, and his jaw clenched so tightly that the muscles in his face twitched with barely contained rage. The announcer's voice boomed through the room, exaggerated and theatrical, as if every word was a declaration of war. "One student. One cloak. One mystery. Midoriya Izuku," the voice continued, with dramatic flair, "the boy with no listed quirk. The lone wolf of U.A.'s hero course." Bakugo's eyes widened, pupils shrinking, and he suddenly dropped his sandwich with a loud crunch, crumbs scattering across the sheets. His fists clenched into tight ball, knuckles white, as rage bubbled just beneath the surface. His voice, almost a whisper of fury, growled, "No F King way." Meanwhile, in a shadowed corner of a dimly lit villain bar, Tamura Shigaraki sat hunched over a flickering monitor, eyes flickering with cold calculation as he watched the same promo. His gaze lingered on Izuku's smirk, hood half up, glowing eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen with icy intent. The flickering footage seemed to hypnotize him, pausing as he slowly stood, muttering in a low, contemplative tone, "I need a nap." His mind was already racing, plotting, calculating the chaos he could unleash, the destruction waiting just beyond the horizon. A faint grin tugged at his lips, dangerous, calculated, hungry. Day of the festival, arena prep zone. Izuku stood in the long, echoing corridor, arms crossed over his chest, cloaked in darkness. His body was taut, every muscle alert, skin tingling with anticipation. The faint scent of lavender and sweat hung thick in the air, mingling with the cool, sterile smell of the tiled walls and faint ozone from the nearby electronics. His fingers clenched and unclenched around a granola bar, tearing into it with aggressive focus, each crunch sharp and satisfying in the tense silence. The faint taste of bitter oats and honey lingered on his tongue as he whispered affirmations to himself, soft and urgent, like a prayer passed through clenched teeth. Stay focused. Be dramatic. Stay in control. Aizawa leaned casually against the wall nearby, watching him with wary eyes, a faint scent of stale coffee lingering around him. His voice was calm but edged with concern. "You sure you're ready for this?" Izuku responded without hesitation, voice calm and steady, like a blade sheathed but ready to strike. "No, but I am dramatic. That counts for something." A heavy silence stretched between them, thick with anticipation and unspoken tension, like a storm gathering just beyond the horizon. "Just, try to look like a functioning human being for 10 minutes, Aizawa said softly, voice tired but sincere, a plea to ground the chaos. "I'm already too late," Izuku replied with a faint, mischievous smirk, already imagining the chaos that was about to unfold, a storm of shadows and surprises. Opening ceremony, main stadium. The colossal stadium roared with energy, a living, breathing beast of anticipation. The scent of sweat, sweatshirts, and the faint tang of adrenaline filled every breath, every pore. The floodlights blazed overhead, their harsh glare illuminating every detail, the beads of sweat on brows, the clenched fists, the wide, eager gazes of the crowd. Cameras lined the perimeter, their lenses capturing every flicker of emotion, every bead of sweat, every twitch of anticipation. The announcers' voices boomed like thunder, exaggerated and full of excitement, echoing through the vast space and bouncing off the seats. Present Mike, in full energetic mode, seized the microphone with both hands, leaning into it like he was announcing a wrestling match. And now, representing Hero Course Year 1, the mysterious, the majestic, the cloaked menace himself, Ferret-Level, Izuku Midoriya. The crowd erupted into cheers, applause, and excited shouts, their faces lit with curiosity, suspicion, and awe. Izuku stepped into the spotlight with a slow, deliberate gait, each step heavy and purposeful, as if knowing the entire internet was already losing its mind over this spectacle. The cloak billowed behind him, swirling like a shadow caught in a storm, the fabric rippling with every movement. The blinking LED mask cast an ominous glow, pulsing softly in time with his heartbeat, giving him an almost supernatural aura. The atmosphere shifted, an unsettling blend of menace and elegance, a crypt-like aesthetic infused with chaos. The crowd fell silent, breath held in collective anticipation, as the tension thickened. Then, out of nowhere, Midnight let out a primal scream, while hidden behind her own hand to avoid people connecting the scream to her, voice cracking with enthusiasm. "He looks like he kills gods and then takes notes on their body language." The arena roared back, laughter, cheers, and applause, captivated by the surreal spectacle of shadows and whispers, a figure embodying chaos itself. First event, obstacle course. This was meant to be a simple test of agility and speed, a warm-up. But as the horn blared, Izuku did not sprint like everyone else. Instead, he took a slow, measured step forward and began walking deliberately down the center of the course. His footsteps were muffled but deliberate, each one echoing softly against the gritty surface. The faint scrape of his boots sounded like a warning, a whisper of chaos approaching. While others dodged mines, leapt over towering robots, and darted across narrow bridges, Izuku subtly manipulated the environment, his presence warping the physics around him. Robots, confused and disoriented, wandered off cliffs or collided with walls, their mechanical limbs flailing in helplessness. Landmines launched into the air like corks popping from champagne bottles, exploding harmlessly in showers of sparks and smoke. A pit trap, sensing his approach, tried to close its jaws, but instinctively avoided him, closing just inches away from his feet. He crossed the finish line without breaking stride, then pulled out a battered notebook, flipping through pages with deliberate care. His voice, quiet but confident, drifted into the tense silence as he scribbled notes. Note, gravity still emotionally dependent, he muttered softly, eyes flickering with intensity. Follow-up needed. Somewhere in Mizufu, Hatsume gasped with delight, eyes wide and shining. He made the course anxious, she exclaimed, voice full of admiration. From his own home, Shinso Hitoshi watched with sharp, calculating eyes, scribbling in his journal. Potential god-tier existential threat, he muttered, voice tinged with respect and cautious warning. He'll be a senior next year. Second event, Cavalry Battle, Modified, survived the Ferret mode. Due to a complete lack of willing partners, the event was adjusted into a chaotic free-for-all. Izuku was given 5 headbands, each one a symbol of his unapproachable, aloof aura, while everyone else had only one. If you touch me, he warned during the countdown, voice calm and steady, you may not come back the same. The chaos erupted within seconds. Over half the participants either fled, froze, or surrendered within just 2 minutes. One boy spun in place, muttering, it blinked. The cloak blinked, his wide eyes reflecting pure terror, clutching his head as if reality itself was collapsing. Another was flat on the ground, whispering to a patch of grass, what is morality? A question that seemed to echo from the depths of his soul, trembling with existential dread. No one dared approach him, no one wanted to risk. Invoking the full force of his presence, that unsettling calm that radiated like a black hole, threatening to swallow everything. Izuku, standing alone at the center, was unbothered, eyes half-lidded, a lazy stretch in his posture. He yawned with exaggerated ease, stretching as if he had all the time in the world, the faint scent of lavender and chaos lingering around him. Final event, tournament battles. This was no ordinary tournament. Instead, it resembled a strange, live group therapy session with a telekinetic oracle. Each round, Izuku faced a different opponent, each more unpredictable than the last. And each time, he won, not by fighting, but by delving into their deepest insecurities, their traumas, their fears. Round 1, the boy surrendered the moment Izuku quoted a childhood trauma, voice trembling, eyes brimming with tears. Round 2, the speedster froze as Izuku waved her headband and said softly, you dropped this, 2 years from now, predicting her future humiliation with unnerving accuracy. Round 3, the engineering student, overwhelmed by the weight of perception, screamed, I'm not ready to be perceived, and fled the ring, trembling like a frightened animal. Final round, Izuku versus no one. The crowd, stunned into silence, watched as every opponent had fallen, no one left to challenge him. The stadium was filled with a reverent hush, whispers rippling through the seats. Izuku raised a gloved hand, a gesture both commanding and humble, and spoke softly, thank you for attending my one-man show, his voice echoing across the silent stadium. Season 2 will have fewer war crimes. Probably. And the crowd erupted into thunderous applause, some cheering wildly, others still stunned into silence, caught in the surreal, chaotic spell of this one shadow, this one chaos incarnate. Later that night, dorms the teachers gathered in the lounge, faces pale and exhausted, their expressions etched with a mixture of trauma and awe. Nizu, unbothered, sat with a bowl of popcorn, crumbs sticking unceremoniously to his tiny face, eyes gleaming with a mischievous light. "That went well," he chirped cheerfully, crumbs falling from his mouth as he gestured brightly. "Power loader," voice rising in frustration, yelled, he psychologically obliterated an entire student body. Recovery girl, calmly savoring her tea, added softly, he didn't lay a single hand on anyone. Midnight, her voice subdued and trembling, looked down at the chaos, papers, confetti, glitter scattered across the table, a testament to the chaos. "He wore 2 cloaks at once," she whispered, voice soft but filled with awe and concern. "Double cloak. Double chaos." Aizawa, silent and stoic as always, muttered, "I'm going to bed. Wake me if he starts a cult." Present Mike, with a grin and a conspiratorial whisper, added, "He already started a cult." Nizu's grin widened, eyes gleaming with mischief. "They're calling him the cloaked ghost of you, online. Hero agencies are already sending bribes." Back in his dorm room, Izuku stood in front of the mirror, peeling off the mask. His face was streaked with sweat, his hair damp and tousled from the chaos of the day. His eyes shimmered with a complex mixture, pride, exhaustion, and a flicker of uncertainty. The cloak, dark and swirling, hung loosely around his shoulders, a shroud of chaos and protection. A tiny voice inside his mind whispered, hushed but persistent, like a ghost echoing in the silence, "You're not a side character anymore." He looked at himself in the mirror, trembling slightly, a faint, tired smile curling across his lips as he felt the weight of his own chaos, internal, external, settling around him like a shroud. From the corner of the room, a squirrel saluted, a tiny, twitching gesture of allegiance, a silent vow of loyalty. Izuku, with a weary but resolute expression, returned the salute, feeling the chaos inside him and wondering where this chaotic path would lead next. Chapter 9, Confrontation at the Gates of UA. It had been 4 weeks since Izuku Midoriya rose from the metaphorical grave, exploded onto national television, and redefined the concept of problem child with godlike power. It had been 4 weeks since Katsuki Bakugo realized he might be a terrible person. And it had been 4 minutes since Katsuki marched through the gates of without a visitor pass, slamming the security kiosk with a palm of nitroglycerin sweat and screaming, "Where the hell is Deku?" 2:12 p.m. UA, entrance plaza. Present Mike was the first on the scene, sliding down a banister with the wild-eyed panic of someone who had not been trained for this exact situation. Kiddo. You can't just barge into shut it, Walmart All Might," Katsuki snapped. "I saw the sports festival broadcast. I know he's here. And I'm not leaving till I get answers." Mike blinked. "Walmart All, okay, ouch, first of all behind them, Aizawa walked up, hands in his pockets, scarf trailing. "Let him in." "Show Yuta, are you serious he was always gonna show up eventually," Aizawa sighed. "Might as well let the fireworks happen on our terms." 2:17 p.m. Staff group chat. Panic midnight, explosion child at the gate. Real angry. Real loud. Power loader, is this the blonde you said bullied Izuku in middle school? Mike, yes. It's him. Katsuki, spicy regret, Bakugo. Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes. Cementos, this is going to be a psychological Armageddon. Recovery girl, I've prepped snacks and trauma bandages. Aizawa, let him in. Aizawa, I'll be supervising. Aizawa, Midoriya already knows he's here. Nizu, Paw Prints. I scheduled it for drama hour. Paw Prints. 2:23 p.m. Courtyard. The heavy gates of the school swung open with a slow, grinding creak, revealing the familiar, yet strangely distant, silhouette of Katsuki Bakugo. His body tensed as he stepped inside, every movement sharp and deliberate, like a predator approaching a battlefield. His fists clenched, knuckles white, as if holding back a flood of pent-up fury, regret, and 1,000 unspoken words. His chest heaved slightly, breaths shallow but ragged, the air thick with tension and the faint scent of burnt metal and sweat. The sun shone harshly overhead, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. The breeze stirred the edges of his hair and the hem of his gauntlet, an almost mocking reminder of the chaos he felt inside. His eyes flicked across the courtyard, scanning, searching for something, someone. Across the open space, sitting cross-legged on a low stone wall, hood pulled up over his head, mask half on, sat Izuku Midoriya. His posture was relaxed, almost too casual, as if he didn't have a care in the world. His cloak moved in the wind, fabric rippling softly, a dark silhouette against the bright sunlight. A single squirrel, perched on Izuku's shoulder, blinked slowly, its tiny eyes observing Katsuki with calm indifference. The boy was sipping from a juice pouch labeled Chaos Nectar, the liquid inside shimmering faintly as he took slow, deliberate sips. His eyes, visible beneath the hood, were calm, too calm. The kind of calm that made Katsuki's stomach tighten, a cold shiver running down his spine. "Hey, Kaken," Izuku finally said, voice smooth and measured, like a quiet river flowing beneath a stormy sky. Katsuki froze. His breath hitched for a moment, heart pounding loudly in his ears. He hesitated, the words caught in his throat. Because it wasn't the voice of the kid who used to beg for scraps of kindness, who stammered and stuttered and desperately sought approval. It was calm. Controlled. Collected. It was a voice that said, "I don't need you anymore." The air grew heavy. Katsuki's fists clenched tighter, knuckles aching, as he fought to keep his composure. His mind spun with conflicting emotions, anger, fear, guilt, and a strange, aching hope. "You're alive," he managed to say, voice trembling, thick with disbelief. "Yup," Izuku replied simply, raising the juice pouch in a silent toast. You vanished. Your mom left, your number changed, and then you show up on TV making killer robots cry." Izuku took another slow sip, the faint crackle of the juice pouch the only sound in the tense silence. "You told me to jump off a building," he said, voice even, almost detached. "I figured I'd try up. It worked out." Katsuki flinched, just slightly, but enough for Izuku to notice, his shoulders tightening as if a blow had landed. "I didn't mean it like that," Katsuki blurted, voice strained, the words spilling out before he could think. "You did," Izuku said softly, without anger, without judgment. Just a quiet, unwavering certainty. Katsuki's fists clenched so hard that his nails dug into his palms. His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing as rage and frustration battled within him. "You think you're all high and mighty now, huh? U.A.'s favorite trauma gremlin. You think you can outgrow me?" Izuku's gaze remained steady, unblinking. "I didn't outgrow you," he said evenly. "I survived you." The words hung in the air, cold, sharp, unrelenting. Katsuki's entire body tensed as if struck by a blow, and for a moment, all the rage drained from his face, replaced by something softer, something hurt. 2:30 p.m. This is not a conversation, it's a detonation, everyone's talking about you like you're some kind of genius. Katsuki snapped, voice sharp and full of raw emotion. His eyes blazed, fists clenched at his sides, veins standing out in his neck. "Like you didn't used to trail after me like a DMN lost puppy." Izuku, still calm, took another measured sip from his juice pouch, the faint sound of the liquid slipping past the straw almost soothing. "And you used to punch vending machines for validation," he said, voice even but cold, cutting through Katsuki's anger like a blade. "What the hell happened to you?" Katsuki roared, voice cracking with frustration, a surge of emotion spilling over. Izuku's expression remained unchanging, as if he was watching a storm pass through him. "You happened," he said softly, the words heavy with meaning. A pause, thick and suffocating. Katsuki's chest heaved with the effort to breathe, to hold himself together. "And then I happened to myself," Izuku added quietly, voice barely above a whisper. Katsuki's eyes went wide, no longer angry, but lost, a flicker of confusion and regret flickering in their depths. His voice was hoarse and trembling, almost unrecognizable. "I thought you were dead, Izuku." Izuku looked at him for a long, silent moment, meeting his gaze with a depth that seemed to pierce through the chaos of their past. Then, softly, he said, "So did I." A heavy silence fell like a thick fog between them. The wind stirred the edge of Izuku's cloak, the fabric whispering and fluttering in the breeze, a dark shroud of secrets, pain, and unspoken truths. Somewhere nearby, a drone buzzed softly, humming a monotonous recording, always recording. "You wanted answers," Izuku said, voice gentle but firm. "So here's the only one that matters. I'm not the same person you pushed around anymore. I'm not waiting for your approval. I don't need your respect. But if you want to fix what you broke, start by admitting you broke it." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, as Katsuki stared, unblinking, the raw, unfiltered truth sinking deep into his chest. 2:42 p.m. Rooftop observation high above the courtyard, the faculty watched with quiet, watchful eyes from the rooftop, their binoculars trained on the scene below. The air was still, tinged with the faint scent of popcorn and crisp autumn leaves, a stark contrast to the tension radiating outward. Midnight whispered softly, her voice hushed but full of awe. "I feel like we just witnessed emotional murder." Aizawa's eyes narrowed, the faint scent of stale coffee lingering around him as he crossed his arms. "He needed that," he said, voice low and steady. Recovery Girl, sitting beside him, nodded softly, her gaze calm and contemplative as she sipped her tea. "Do you think Bakugo will apologize?" she asked quietly. "God, no," Mike muttered from his corner, voice barely above a whisper. "But he might start thinking. That's new." The wind blew softly across the rooftop, stirring their hair and clothes, carrying away the last remnants of the confrontation like dust on a breeze. 2:47 p.m. Courtyard wrap-up. Katsuki didn't respond. His gaze was fixed on Izuku, but it was different now, no longer angry, no longer raging. Instead, there was a cold, uncertain vacancy, like he was seeing a stranger through a cracked mirror, a distorted version of the boy he once knew. "I don't know who you are anymore," he muttered, voice hollow and unsteady. "Good," Izuku replied, voice calm and unwavering. "I like it that way." Katsuki turned slowly, shoulders heavy, and walked away without a word, no explosion, no shouting, no fury unleashed. Just a slow, deliberate departure into the shadows, leaving behind the ghost of a boy who once had the power to shake the world. Izuku sat back down, taking a slow sip from his juice pouch, then pulled out a battered notepad labeled, "Therapy but with Casual Violence, Volume 3. A tiny squirrel dropped a peanut into his hand, its beady eyes watching him with unwavering loyalty. He nodded in quiet acknowledgement, the faintest smile touching his lips as he stared out across the courtyard, contemplating the next chapter in this strange, chaotic story. Chapter 10, The Great Nizu Debate, or, Heroism, but make it psychological warfare. If you asked anyone at UA, who came up with the idea, the answer would be the same, Nizu. Obviously. Only Nizu would look at the current state of the hero world, bloated commissions, murky moral gray zones, kids being shoved into PR-friendly death pits, and say, "You know what we need. A debate." And only Nizu would invite Izuku Midoriya to help teach it. 3 days before the event, faculty lounge. The air in the faculty lounge was thick with a mixture of tension and quiet chaos, the kind that only comes from knowing something monumental was about to happen. Nizu, small but confident, poured himself a cup of tea, the warm aroma curling upward in tendrils of peppermint and subtle herbal notes. His tiny smile radiated mischief. Aizawa stood stiffly nearby, arms crossed, scarf pulled up to his nose, eyes half-lidded with exhaustion and suspicion. His voice was low, gravelly, tinged with warning. "I'm not doing this," he said, voice flat but firm. "You're weaponizing my child." Nizu chuckled softly, voice cheerful and unrepentant. "He volunteered," he chirped, gesturing with a tiny paw as he poured more tea. "Besides, I promised snacks." Aizawa's gaze narrowed. "You offered him co-hosting rights and a laser pointer." "That's not the same." Nizu's grin widened. "I also promised snacks. Power loader, behind a cluttered desk, groaned loudly, muffling his voice behind a newspaper. He asked if the projector could handle philosophical reprogramming and then winked. His words sounded like a mixture of dread and admiration. Mike leaned over, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Show Yuta," he whispered, voice full of amusement. He already wrote the presentation. And he gave me a syllabus. A syllabus. Midnight, half listening, muttered, "He told me my shoes were a symbol of capitalist complacency." And I agreed with him. Aizawa buried his face in his scarf, a long, slow sigh escaping him. "This is going to cause an incident," he muttered, voice muffled but ominous. One day before, Izuku's room, the walls, desk, window, and even the shelves of his squirrel enclosure were covered in neat, tiny handwriting, each note meticulously placed like a battlefield map of ideas. Sticky notes fluttered slightly in the breeze from the open window, their ink crisp and bright against the pastel walls. Heroism versus utilitarian sacrifice, bold, underlined. Commission records, redacted, scribbled with a flourish. Ethics, are we kidding ourselves, a question that felt heavy, pressing at the edges of his mind. On the desk, a stack of thesis binders sat in perfect order, each tab labeled with sharp, precise handwriting. One of the tiny squirrels held a miniature pointer stick, standing on a pile of notes like a professor delivering a lecture. Every surface was alive with anticipation, cloaks draped over chairs, piles of books, and a sense that this was a battlefield of ideas. The faint scent of paper, marker ink, and the faintest hint of mint from the gum he'd been chewing filled the room, a quiet hum of concentration. Day of 6 p.m. Hero Ethics Open Lecture Hall. The lecture hall was packed, an ocean of students, faculty, press, and representatives from hero agencies, all eager to witness the culmination of Izuku Midoriya's chaotic genius. The air was thick with anticipation, tinged with the scent of polished wood, fresh paint, and faint electric hums from the projector warming up. Nizu, seated at the front, looked calm, collected, with a smile that radiated confidence. His tiny paws stroked his chin as if he had already anticipated everything. Standing beside him was Izuku, cloaked in his full outfit, mask hooked at his hip, fingers laced in front of him like a Victorian therapist preparing to dismantle worldview. The room dimmed, the projector hummed, and the silence stretched, thick and expectant, before Izuku finally spoke. With a quiet, deliberate voice, he began, "Today, we are going to talk about how hero society uses children to fix its mistakes." Slide 1, The Lie of the System. Izuku paced slowly, each step deliberate, the faint scrape of his boots against the polished floor echoing in the silence. His voice was calm but carried the weight of conviction. "Quirks were never the problem," he said, eyes steady, scanning the room. "Lack of support, of resources, of honest mentorship, that is the real issue. Heroes burn out because they are told to be symbols instead of real people." Cameras clicked, some capturing the intensity of his gaze, others recording the faint tremor in the hands of the commission reps as they whispered nervously. Aizawa sat in the back, clutching a thermos of the strongest coffee allowed by law, eyes sharp and focused. Slide 3, Commission Logic, Protect the image, not the child. Izuku's voice grew sharper, edges like a scalpel. "I've read the policy documents," he said, piercing. "There are clauses that allow for minimizing trauma optics, but not trauma causes. We protect kids from scandal, not danger." Midnight clapped once softly, whispering, "I'm scared, but also enlightened," her voice trembling with a strange mixture of fear and understanding. Power Loader muttered, voice muffled behind his hand, "I think he just cancelled the government with bullet points." Slide 6, When the hero system is just a machine with pretty paint. Izuku stepped forward, voice calm but filled with a quiet, seething sadness. "When I was listed as quirkless, no one cared what I thought. When I turned out not to be. Suddenly I am a PR asset. I did not change. The label did." His smile was sharp, sad, knowing, like a dagger wrapped in velvet. He paused, voice deepening. "If your system only respects power, it doesn't deserve to define heroism." Someone in the third row burst into quiet tears, their shoulders trembling as the truth cut through the veneer of hero society. Slide 9, Redefining Heroism. A new slide appeared, blank, stark against the darkened room. Izuku turned to face the audience fully, voice steady but powerful. What if being a hero is not about glory? What if it is about compassion? What if it is about stepping in when no one else does, not for credit, but because someone must? Nizu looked positively gleeful, his tiny eyes gleaming with mischief. Mike was filming, midnight furiously scribbling notes labeled, Emergency Soul Upgrade. The projector flickered ominously, sparks crackling inside the device, as if even technology was trembling before the storm. Slide 10, a blank screen. Izuku's voice dropped to a whisper, almost a secret. No more questions about what quirks can do. Start asking what systems will not do. Start fixing the gap between hero and good person. Or one day, the kids you ignored. He paused, voice heavy with unspoken warning. They'll grow up like me. The silence was deafening, no cough, no shuffling, not a single breath. Even the squirrels paused, still and silent, as if the very universe held its breath in disbelief. After the lecture, chaos erupted like a storm. Reporters scrambled, camera crews frantically capturing every moment. The commission representatives looked pale, eyes wide with shock, and one hero resigned on the spot, overwhelmed. Power loader's scream echoed across the hall, voice full of fury and disbelief. He threw the system into a wood chipper. Present Mike, doubled over with laughter, couldn't contain himself. Midnight whispered, I'm going to rethink every decision I've ever made. Nizu handed Izuku a tiny, gleaming gold star sticker. You did wonderfully, he said, voice proud and tiny. Izuku blinked, stunned. Did I start a revolution? Only a little one, Nizu replied, sipping his tea with a satisfied smirk. They needed it. That night, rooftop, again Izuku sat under the stars, mask resting on the ground, head tilted back as he gazed upward into the vast, dark sky. The crisp night air brushed against his skin, cool and calming, carrying the faint scent of dew and distant city lights. The silence was thick, broken only by the gentle hum of nocturnal insects and the distant, faint echo of the chaos from earlier. Aizawa found him there, silent, quiet, sitting in the shadows, eyes steady behind his scarf. You set off the commission, he said, voice low but not unkind. Izuku's voice was calm, almost peaceful. I made several points, he replied softly, gaze fixed on the endless starry sky. You might be on a watch list, Aizawa said, a hint of dry humor in his tone. I'm already on 3, Izuku said, a faint smile touching his lips. A pause. I'm proud of you, Aizawa finally said, voice thick with emotion. And terrified. But mostly proud. Izuku didn't smile. He simply nodded, a quiet acknowledgement of the chaos he'd unleashed, an internal storm of hope, defiance, and uncertainty, simmering beneath the calm exterior. He sat in silence, weightless yet heavy with the knowledge that he'd changed everything, and that the world might never be the same again. Chapter 11, Aizawa catches a cold, and everyone panics, or, we need a new dad and he's dying probably. Had dealt with villain attacks, quirk meltdowns, political fallout, and even squirrels unionizing. Under a gifted teenager. They had not, however, prepared for Aizawa Shoyuta getting a head cold. 6:15 a.m. Staff Lounge, Day 1. Aizawa shuffled into the room like the physical embodiment of seasonal depression. His scarf was wrapped around him like a cocoon. He sneezed twice, groaned, and collapsed face first into a beanbag chair with a noise that could only be described as existential. Good morning, Nizu chirped, sliding him a tissue and a mug of vaguely glowing tea. I'm dying, Aizawa mumbled. You have a cold. Same thing. Present Mike walked in, took one look at him, and immediately gasped. Oh God, he's down. Man down. Code black coffee. 6:16 a.m. Faculty group chat. Present Mike, show is sick present mic, I repeat the feral dad is sick midnight, oh no power loader, he has a cold you drama queen cementos, wait does Izuku know Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes he knows now smiling face with smiling eyes recovery girl, BRB preparing to sedate a child 6:18 a.m. Dormitory inferno Izuku's eyes snapped open, suddenly alert. A cold, supernatural chill prickling down his spine like an icy finger tracing his back. The air in the room felt off, thick, oppressive, like the atmosphere before a storm. His muscles tensed instantly, heart pounding harder, adrenaline flooding his veins. He shot upright, cloak half on, wild-eyed, breath ragged as if he had been yanked out of a nightmare. His senses sharpened, each creak of the building, each faint whisper of wind through the window, every distant sound amplified in the quiet chaos of his mind. Zawa's energy is OFF, he barked, voice sharp and commanding, like a lightning strike. His fingers instinctively reached for his gear, gauntlets, cold and metallic against his palms, the faint hum of the electronics inside vibrating softly. He grabbed 6 vials of immune boosters, the glass cool and smooth, and a battered binder labeled, Emergency Dad Care Plan Alpha, its edges frayed from use, the paper thick and slightly crinkled from countless emergency meetings. The squirrels, sensing his urgency, let out high-pitched screams in unison, a cacophony of tiny, frantic alarms, and dove into perfect formation, tiny fuzzy soldiers ready for action. Izuku bolted into the hallway, every step deliberate, senses alive with the anticipation of chaos. His cloak billowed behind him, swirling in the stale morning air, a dark shadow cast against the pale light filtering through the windows. 6:23 a.m. Lounge, now Emergency Command Center. The once quiet lounge had been transformed into a makeshift war room, cluttered, chaotic, alive with urgency. Izuku pushed aside a chair with a sharp, commanding gesture and dragged in a humongous humidifier, big enough to be mistaken for a small fire hydrant, its mist spilling out in heavy, humid clouds, filling the room with a scent of dampness and sterile sterilizer. He pointed to the device with a commanding glare, voice rough from lack of sleep but sharp as a scalpel. Sit down, he snapped, already grabbing a thermometer, a stethoscope, and a small bottle of essential oil. You've reached symptom stage 2, nasal fatigue and vocal rasp. Aizawa, lying flat on the floor, wrapped in his blanket like a sad, defeated taquito, did not move. His face was pale, lips cracked, and his eyes were glassy, rimmed with exhaustion. Sleep, Izuku ordered, voice clipped. Aizawa still did not move. Izuku squinted, eyes narrowing. His gaze sharpened, sensing faint shifts in the gravity of the room, in the subtle vibrations of the air. Don't make me reality fold your blanket tighter, he warned, voice low but edged with a razor's edge. The blanket, as if obeying an unspoken command, tightened slightly around Aizawa, who finally grumbled, defeated, and let his body relax, surrendering into the fabric. 7 a.m. Mission briefing. The staff found themselves seated on cheap plastic kiddie chairs arranged around a whiteboard scrawled with the words, Operation, Dad Down, a title that dripped with both desperation and dark humor. Objectives were written in bold marker, keep Zawa alive, don't let him teach, keep him in bed, at any cost. Izuku, standing at the front, looked like a storm incarnate, cloaked, eyes sharp, voice steady but commanding. I've prepped soup rotations, surveillance drones, and 5 decoy lesson plans, he announced, voice unwavering, like a general briefing troops before battle. Midnight raised her hand hesitantly. Did you schedule time for emotional regulation? Izuku's face froze for a beat, then he shook his head. No. A long pause. Tense and heavy, like the silence before thunder. But I did make tea, he added, voice soft but resolute, as if a small act of rebellion in a war of chaos. 8:10 a.m. First PRD. Aizawa, trying to slip out of bed unnoticed, tiptoed toward the classroom in an act of quiet defiance. But Izuku's senses were sharper than a hawk's. His eyes snapped open, and he caught him mid-escape. How? Aizawa asked, voice flat on the floor, wrapped in his blanket like a sad, exhausted taco. I sense shifts in your gravitational pull, Izuku said, voice calm but eerily precise, as if detecting a tremor in spacetime. That's not science, Aizawa grumbled. I'm not science, Izuku replied, eyes gleaming with something unhinged, almost playful. Aizawa sighed, defeated, and sank deeper into his blanket, the fabric soft and warm but unable to hide the exhaustion etched into his face. 10 a.m. Replacement teacher, Ferret Mode Izuku took over Aizawa's classes like a high-functioning maniac, cloak swirling around him, tea in hand, the scent of chamomile and chaos filling the room. He organized the whiteboard into a rotating chaos wheel, the marker squeaking softly as he wrote, when the hero becomes the problem. The students, still reeling from the sports festival, sat in stunned silence, eyes wide as they absorbed the chaos. Subtopics: emotional burnout, PR trauma masks, the ethics of punching fascists. No one dared to speak until one girl, tears brimming, quietly whispered, "Thank you for validating my feelings," before dissolving into emotional relief. The room was thick with silence, an oppressive, almost sacred hush, as Izuku's words sank deep into their hearts, the weight of truth crashing over them like a storm surge. Noon, faculty lounge recovery check. Aizawa, wrapped in 3 blankets like a shroud of exhaustion, sat staring out the window into the gray sky, eyes dull and distant. His face was pale, lips cracked, the faint scent of cold air and stale coffee lingering around him. Midnight handed him a bowl of steaming soup, the aroma warm and comforting, but he only stared, unresponsive. Mike sat nearby, softly playing a playlist titled "Mild Bangers for the Emotionally Fractured," the gentle beats contrasting with the chaos of the day. "I'm fine," Aizawa rasped, voice hoarse, eyes dull. "You're not," Power Loader snapped, voice sharp and urgent. He had a spreadsheet, show Yuta. It auto-updates your temperature based on your grumpiness level. A beat of silence. The air grew tense. "It's disturbingly accurate," Midnight muttered, eyes wide with a mixture of awe and horror. 1:30 p.m. The intervention, Part 2. Izuku returned between classes, calm and composed, an unshakable storm. "You didn't rest," he said softly, voice like a whispering gale. Aizawa, coughing violently, replied, "I did," then immediately sneezed 5 times in rapid succession, the force of each sneeze shaking his entire body. Izuku crouched next to him, gentle but firm, pushing the tea closer. So softly that others almost missed it, he said, "You don't have to break yourself to be useful." Aizawa blinked slowly, looking away, but the faint, tiny tremor in his hand betrayed him. He accepted the tea, the warm steam curling around his face, the bitter scent of herbs and healing. 6 p.m. Rooftop. The sun was dipping low, casting long, golden shadows across the cityscape. Izuku sat on the rooftop edge, legs dangling, wrapped in a blanket borrowed from the faculty lounge, the fabric soft and warm, tinged with the faint scent of lavender and city smoke. The ferret squirrels nestled in his hood, tiny paws twitching in contentment. Aizawa, scarf pulled loosely around his neck, slowly approached, quiet and deliberate. "I should be mad you took over my classes," he said, voice gravelly but calm. "You are mad," Izuku replied softly, eyes fixed on the horizon, but also full of chicken broth. "Which makes it hard to fight." Aizawa sat beside him, shoulders relaxed, taking in the view and the quiet hum of the city below. "You worry too much," Aizawa said, voice low, almost affectionate. "You give me reasons to," Izuku answered, leaning his head gently on Aizawa's shoulder. A pause. The distant sound of city life, the faint rustle of leaves, and the soft, rhythmic breathing of 2 weary souls. "You're really starting to act like my kid," Aizawa finally said, voice thick with unspoken emotion. Izuku's eyes softened. "Yeah," he whispered. "I noticed." The quiet settled again, the kind that lingers in the air after a storm, peaceful, heavy, and full of unspoken promises. Chapter 12, The Ferret Foundation, A.U. Club with zero chill, or, chaotic good is still a tax bracket. Every U. student was required to join a club. It was a simple mandate. Promote student bonding across courses. Encourage hobbies. Prevent unchecked existential spirals. In theory. But the moment that policy reached Izuku Midoriya, you should have shredded the rulebook and started over. 9:45 a.m. Administration Office. I'm forming a club, Izuku declared, sliding a very thick, very annotated folder across Nizu's desk. Nizu's ears perked up. Oh. What kind of club? Chaotic altruism. Go on. Combining public service, crisis intervention, moral philosophy, practical activism, and light sabotage. For educational purposes. Nizu opened the folder. The first page had a ferret in a beret holding a knife and a banner that read, Ferret Foundation, Fixing Systems, Wrecking Expectations. By page 4 there was a mission statement. By page 9 there were lesson plans. By page 13 there was a merch store link. Approved, Nizu said, signing it immediately. Do you want grant funding or just a direct account with our internal discretionary budget? 10:20 a.m. Faculty group chat meltdown power loader. He made a club midnight. What's it called? Present Mike, the Ferret Foundation Cementos. Sounds fake recovery girl. Sounds like the most terrifying non-profit ever. Nizu. Paw Prince. He has a logo. Paw Prince Aizawa. I regret allowing him access to Canva Club Day. Commons Hall. The hall was alive with noise, clattering chairs, excited chatter, and the faint hum of activity from all the clubs setting up their tables. The air smelled of fresh coffee, paper, and the faint aroma of baked goods from the culinary club. Bright banners fluttered overhead, each emblazoned with colorful logos and slogans, tech workshop, gardening, tea enthusiasts, and more. Amid the usual, there was one table that seemed to radiate chaos in a different way, the unmistakable, unmissable Ferret Foundation. Its banner was a chaotic collage of scribbled plans, fuzzy photos, and glittering stickers. At the table, Izuku sat with an air of quiet confidence, cloak draped over his shoulders, the fabric rustling softly with every movement. His table was a carefully curated mess of purpose, a full mission charter, its pages filled with detailed, almost manic handwriting. Applications labeled, "Do you qualify for chaos?" each one filled out with a messy mix of hope and trepidation. 3 squirrels in tiny blazers, sitting upright and staring intently, as if they were executive officers. A trifold display board featuring live footage from his custom drone, humming softly, its camera whirring gently. A flyer titled, "We will emotionally disembowel tyrants, and sometimes bake cookies," written in bold, chaotic lettering, adorned with doodles of cookies and explosions. The faculty watched from a distance, their expressions a mixture of horror and disbelief. The students approached cautiously, wary of the chaos they sensed radiating from the table. One girl, wide-eyed and clutching her bag tightly, read the flyer and promptly fainted, collapsing in a faint heap, eyes rolling. Meanwhile, another student, eyes shining with a strange mix of hope and desperation, signed up with trembling hands and whispered, "Finally, a club for me." Tears welled up, and she silently clutched the application, as if it were a lifeline. 12 p.m. First meeting, room 1A, Ferret HQ. Only 3 brave students dared to step through the door of the so-called Ferret HQ, a room cluttered with fuzzy plushies, half-eaten snacks, and an air thick with a strange combination of chaos and earnestness. They entered, eyes wide, unsure what they had signed up for. Izuku greeted them wearing his cloak, the hood pulled low, sipping from a steaming cup labeled Crisis Blend, the scent of peppermint and bitter herbs wafting upward. His demeanor was calm but intense, like a storm about to break. In front of him, a projector hummed ominously, casting a flickering light onto a screen. Izuku clicked to a PowerPoint presentation titled, "Welcome to the Revolution, Week 1 Goals." Unpack moral frameworks, his voice was steady, deliberate. Study local city council corruption, an eyebrow raised at the mention of politics. Hack vending machines for charity, an almost playful glint in his eye. Mandatory emotional check-ins, his tone softened with a strange warmth. A girl in the back hesitantly raised her hand, voice trembling, "Are we allowed to talk about like, feelings. Izuku handed her a tissue box, the paper soft and crinkly, and replied with a gentle but firm tone, "We're required to." She sobbed quietly, tears slipping down her face as the realization sank in, this wasn't a typical club. It was something else entirely. 1:30 p.m. Aftermath. The room was quiet, thick with a strange mixture of exhaustion and admiration. Nizu, wandering past, sipped his tea with a slow, contemplative expression. He leaned toward Aizawa, whispering softly, "He's unionized 3 introverts, given them purpose, and weaponized empathy. It's appealing." Aizawa, wrapped in his scarf and looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, muttered, "I'm not getting involved." He pulled his scarf over his head like a hood, voice muffled. Nizu's eyes twinkled mischievously. "You already are. They call him Commander. You're listed as the club's spiritual advisor." Aizawa choked on his drink, eyes wide with disbelief. 3 p.m. Ferret Foundation Mission Number 001, Community Service, Aggressive. Izuku, wearing his full cloak, a determined look in his eyes, led the students into Mizutafu with badges pinned proudly to their chests. The directive was simple but effective: help where help is denied. Within 30 minutes, the city was a flurry of activity. An elderly woman's broken railing was reinforced with metal thread epoxy, the smell of solder and metal filling the air. A vendor, caught overcharging students, was gently coerced into refunding, the faint scent of lemon cleaner lingering as they negotiated. A cat stuck high in a tree was rescued via anti-gravity pad, and a prepared speech about mutual respect across species boundaries was delivered with earnestness. One business owner, overwhelmed, called the police, but the officers arrived, listened, and left a generous tip, shocked but amused. 4 p.m. Hero Commission Surveillance Van 2 agents watched the chaos unfold on their monitors, their expressions a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Are we worried about this one?" one asked, eyes flickering over Izuku organizing leaflets with a tiny squirrel assistant. The other, chewing gum thoughtfully, replied, "He's 15. But he's also running a functional underground support network, has a small army of rodents, and just opened an encrypted donation page for victims of housing evictions." The first agent sighed. "Yeah, we're worried." 6 p.m. Staff lounge debrief. The teachers gathered, faces exhausted but oddly proud. Midnight leaned back in her chair, eyes shining. "I love the Ferret Foundation," she said softly. "It's unhinged in all the right ways." Cementos, not unkindly, nodded. "It's organized anarchy." Recovery Girl added with a gentle smile, "They're going to change the city." Power Loader muttered, "They're going to get sued." Mike grinned widely. "They're going to get results." Aizawa, heading toward the couch with a sigh, added, "I'm taking a nap." Nizu, ever the schemer, called after him, "They listed you as their feral guardian deity." Aizawa, without even turning, simply said, "Fine. As long as they leave soup at the door." Later, Dorm's Izuku sat in the common room, cloaked and relaxed, a small whiteboard in front of him. It read, "Today's moral victory: 1 petty tyrant undermined, 2 friendships formed, 0 reality fractures, nice." The tiny squirrels brought him a report card, an ornate piece of paper with neat checkmarks and scribbled notes. He patted one on the head gently, whispering, "Next week, city planning manipulation," eyes shining with a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. The scent of herbal tea and faint static from the day's chaos lingered in the air, a strange comfort in the aftermath of the storm. Chapter 13, The Faculty Sleepover, Disaster Edition, or, Team Bonding, Emotional Turbulence, and also an air horn. You, teachers, were many things. Respected heroes. Combat veterans. Mentors. But socially adjusted? Absolutely not. Which was why Principal Nizu, in a fit of psychotic optimism, proposed a faculty bonding night, a casual sleepover in the dorm common room, complete with snacks, games, and the opportunity to heal interdepartmental wounds through the soft magic of shared vulnerability. The staff barely agreed. Izuku volunteered immediately. And that was everyone's first mistake. 7:03 p.m. Dorm common room. There were blankets. There were snacks. There were beanbags. There were rules. Rules for faculty sleepover, no work talk. No weapons, power loader was already in trouble. No escaping into crawlspaces, Izuku added that one, then removed it immediately. No flirting under the guise of casual side eyes, Izuku wrote this one in red and underlined it 4 times. Midnight pointed at it, smirking. That last one's a little specific, problem child. Izuku sipped his tea innocently. No idea what you mean. Aizawa glared from across the room. Hisashi Mike coughed into his sleeve and then immediately turned to adjust the playlist. Nizu sipped his tea, watching like a Victorian grandmother orchestrating a marriage plot. 8:12 p.m. Game night begins. Present Mike, cemented into a beanbag, waved a stack of cue cards. Truth or Dare, U, edition. I'd rather be electrocuted, Aizawa muttered. Dare accepted, Izuku said immediately, pulling out a small taser. No. Recovery girl confiscated the taser with a sigh and a pat on his head. 8:19 p.m. The truths begin. Power loader, I once superglued my own foot to a blueprint. I still haven't told the student who found me. Cementos, I sleep with 2 eye masks. 1 for each level of emotional repression. Midnight, I kissed a reporter once so they'd stop asking questions about my love life. All eyes slowly shifted to Aizawa and Mike, who were now very strategically not making eye contact. Oh no, Izuku muttered under his breath, eyes narrowing. They're doing it again. Doing what? Asked recovery girl. The pining, Izuku hissed. They're side-eyeing like they didn't spend 90% of high school writing angsty poetry at each other. Mike laughed nervously. Okay, first of all, rude. Aizawa rubbed his temples. Izuku you're both disasters, Izuku said firmly. This is willful emotional stagnation. Did he just diagnose them with romantic negligence? Power loader whispered. 8:27 p.m. Izuku launches Operation Emotional Sabotage. I think we should do a team-building exercise, Izuku said brightly. Absolutely not, Aizawa replied instantly. Too late. I made worksheets. He passed them out. Each one had, communication quiz, are you emotionally constipated? Section 1, when someone you care about is nearby, do you, A, talk to them like a human? B, make direct eye contact and suffer a slide? C, use sarcasm until one of you dies? D, let Izuku fix it. There is no escape. Did you make this just to bully me and Hisashi? Aizawa asked flatly. Izuku sipped his juice pouch. Define bully. 9 p.m. Prank escalation hour. It began with a glitter bomb. Then the beanbags were zip-tied together. Then someone replaced all of Cementos' snacks with motivational notes like, you don't need sugar, you need therapy. Izuku set an air horn to go off when emotional repression levels peaked, according to his squirrel-based sensors. Aizawa nearly fell over when it shrieked mid-conversation. I'm going to drown myself in the tea kettle, he muttered. You like him, Izuku whispered. That's not relevant it's so relevant it could file taxes. 10:12 p.m. Someone talk about their feelings challenge. It was quiet. The lights were low. The room was filled with the soft hum of emotionally exhausted teachers and one gremlin child writing shipfic in his head. I used to think, Mike said slowly, from where he was half buried under a blanket, that being loud meant I was strong. I think. I was just trying to be heard. Aizawa looked up. His gaze softened. You've always been loud, he murmured. But you've never been too loud. Mike blinked. Oh my God, Izuku whispered into the darkness. They're doing it. The feelings. I'm going to bed, Aizawa muttered, standing abruptly. I'm going to emotionally repress harder than ever, Mike said at the same time. They walked out opposite doors. There was a beat of silence. Cowards, Izuku muttered. 11 p.m. Debrief with Nizu, their disasters, Izuku said, sipping post-prank cocoa. They're emotionally stalled like a traffic jam in the middle of a blizzard. They've known each other for decades, Nizu mused, tail flicking. Do you think they'll ever figure it out on their own? No, Izuku said. But I'm playing the long game. Scheming again, Commander. Izuku grinned. Always. Later, faculty dorms. Aizawa lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Mike knocked once, lingered, and said nothing. They both said nothing. Izuku, 2 floors below, marked something in his notebook. Eraser Mike progress log, sleepover phase X shared blanket contact X public. Vulnerability X simultaneous emotional deflection next step, forced proximity via accidental mission pairing soon. Chapter 14, Hero Internship Selection, and the Chaos Within, or, Why is the Ferret in our group chat? The hero internships were supposed to be a straightforward process. Students received offers from pro-hero agencies, an exchange of polite emails, formal invitations, and promises of experience. They picked the one that aligned with their goals, signed their acceptance letters with careful, practiced handwriting, and waited for the inevitable. The Hero Commission, in their infinite bureaucratic grace, smiled and nodded, pretending they weren't cultivating child soldiers. It was meant to be simple, an opportunity to test skills, gain exposure, and prepare for the future. But Izuku Midoriya had other plans. 8:30 a.m. Faculty Lounge, morning briefing. The lounge buzzed softly with morning activity, clattering coffee mugs, the faint hum of the air conditioning, and the quiet rustle of papers. Nizu, perched atop a mountain of recommendation letters like a tiny, cheerful monarch, cleared his throat with exaggerated importance. Okay, he chirped, eyes gleaming with mischief. Izuku has received 342 internship offers. A long pause. The room held its collective breath. Aizawa, deadpan, looked up from his coffee, voice flat and unimpressed. That's more than all previous first-year classes combined. Midnight flipped through a fan-compiled zine titled, Ferret God of Heroic Unrest, Volume 1, with a look of awe. Her voice was full of admiration and disbelief. They call him, the walking conscience of a collapsing system. Mike, taking a slow sip of his coffee, added with a wry smile, they also call him, that one kid who made me cry during a debate. His voice was full of both fondness and exasperation. Power Loader groaned, tossing a thick file across the table with a loud thud. The paper rustled loudly as he muttered, one agency wants him to redesign their ethics handbook. He's like 15 or something. Nizu's grin grew wider, tiny paws clasped in delight. He's also terrifying. Let him be terrifying. Meanwhile, dorm room 1A. Izuku sat cross-legged on his bed, surrounded by a fortress of laptops, screens flickering with incoming offers, blinking in rapid succession like a swarm of fireflies. His gaze was sharp, deliberate, as if he were dissecting each message with surgical precision. He sipped from a flask labeled, emotional acid, the cold liquid tingling as it traveled down his throat, a strange comfort amid the chaos. His eyes narrowed as he read the offers, some from the local hero scene, others from villain-turned-counselors, a quirky bookstore vigilante, and Miruko. His brow furrowed, then relaxed into a grin. I've been recruited by a local hero, a villain-turned-counselor, a bookstore vigilante, and Miruko, he muttered, voice calm and amused. He blinked slowly, eyes twinkling with mischievous glee. I think she just sent a photo of herself punching a wall. A tiny squirrel, perched on his shoulder, nodded solemnly in agreement. I love her, Izuku whispered, a faint smile curling his lips, eyes glinting with both admiration and a hint of chaos. The squirrels, as if understanding the gravity of the moment, nodded in unison, tiny fuzzy soldiers on the battlefield of his plans. 9 a.m. Faculty group chat chaos. The digital chaos erupted with its usual frantic energy, messages flying faster than anyone could read, emojis exploding across the screen like fireworks, and memes flooding in with reckless abandon. The chat was a swirling storm of chaos and curiosity, a digital battlefield where every message was a tiny explosion of personality, some serious, some sarcastic, some utterly insane. Izuku's phone buzzed relentlessly as the flood of notifications continued, the screen flickering with incoming offers, memes, and the ever-present chaos that seemed to follow him like a shadow. The room was filled with a strange hum, the electric buzz of digital chaos mixed with the faint scent of burnt toast from Aizawa's forgotten breakfast in the corner. Power loader, I swear if one more agency uses the phrase, tactical empathy, in their offer letter Twilight Sparkle, Izuku said he wants to audit them for moral decay, Twilight Sparkle, wait who changed my name from Midnight. Cementos, that kid is both a blessing and a lawsuit waiting to happen. Then a new notification appeared. Beverage box problem _ child has joined the chat user, Izuku Midoriya Screm, wait Screm, no Twilight Sparkle, is he in here? Power loader, who gave him access Nizu, smiling face with smiling eyes I did not stop him smiling face with smiling eyes recovery girl, Izuku sweetie this is for faculty beverage box problem _ child, and I'm spiritually your child beverage box problem _ child, also none of you use two-factor authentication Cementos, I didn't even know we had one-factor feral dad, Izuku. Leave the chat. Beverage box problem _ child, no feral dad, Izuku beverage box problem _ child, father I crave context SEREM, he called you father again Twilight Sparkle, help it's so funny power loader, I'm trying to remove myself and I can't beverage box problem _ child, I changed the permissions beverage box problem _ child, you live here now 9:10 a.m. The screen share from Hell Izuku has posted a link. Beverage box problem _ child, I made a spreadsheet of every agency offer. Color-coded by, actual integrity, performative virtue signaling, potential for mutual ferret-based power coups, snack potential. He screen-shared a 37-tab document that updated in real time. Nizu clapped with delight. Mike fainted and fell off the couch. 9:22 a.m. Hero Commission attempted to intervene. A new number joined the chat briefly. Commission _rep _432, hello, we'd like to speak with the student directly. Beverage box problem _ child, no beverage box problem _ child, you lost that privilege the moment you tried to turn me into a moral mascot for a broken system built on child labor and optics over reform. Beverage box problem _ child, also, your file naming conventions are terrible. Consider hiring someone under commission _rep _432 has left the chat. Recovery girl, he eviscerated a government official with bullet point Cementos, and aesthetic formatting 10 a.m. Intervention, again Aizawa dragged Izuku into his office, arms crossed, exhausted. You hacked the staff chat. Yes. You locked us in. Yes. You humiliated a commission rep in front of Nizu. They started it. Aizawa sighed and slumped into his chair. Kid, Izuku watched him carefully. Then, softer, I didn't do it to be mean. I know. I just want to see if the system breaks before I have to. That made Aizawa pause. He looked at the boy, the cloak, the half-grin, the exhaustion tucked into his bones, and reached out, placing a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to fix the world, Izuku. Then who will? You don't have to do it alone. Izuku didn't speak. But he nodded. 10:45 a.m. Later, faculty chat, problem child has changed chat name to, we fight villains and stuff, beverage box problem _ child, I'm picking an agency beverage box problem _ child, based on their snack offerings and their ability to not emotionally invalidate me beverage box problem _ child, stay tuned power loader, can I leave the chat now beverage box problem _ child, absolutely not Nizu, Paw Prince welcome to the Ferret Zone Paw Prince chapter 15. Miruko wants to adopt him and no one's stopping her, or, joint custody of one chaos child, when Izuku Midoriya submitted his final internship choice, it sent a seismic ripple through the entire campus, the pro-hero community, and even, perhaps most alarmingly, one covert government monitoring system. That immediately registered his decision as a threat level escalated to red alert. He didn't pick the quiet, reputable agency that would keep his head down and his reputation intact. He didn't choose the ones promising influence, prestige, or personal brand growth that sounded like hollow promises whispered in glittering corridors. No. He chose Miruko, the rabbit hero, the embodiment of chaos in motion. High octane. Reckless. Beautifully violent. Ranked in the top 10 and powered solely by adrenaline, zero chill, and a reckless disregard for safety. Izuku's reason was simple, yet terrifying in its honesty. I think she sees the world the same way I do. Fast. Messy. Breakable. He paused, voice softening almost to a whisper. And in desperate need of being kicked in the face. 8 a.m. Front gate. No one, absolutely no one, expected her to show up in person. Certainly not in the way she did. With a roar that shook the ground, the unmistakable growl of a motorcycle ripped through the morning silence. The engine's vibrations thrummed in everyone's bones as Miruko, in a blur of motion, crashed through the gates on a roaring wheelie, sparks flying from her tires like fireworks on a wild holiday. In a single, fluid motion, she launched herself off the seat, her body arching through the air with a grace that should have shattered the pavement beneath her. Students screamed, their faces contorted with shock and awe, some clutching each other, others frozen in disbelief. Faculty scrambled behind benches, their eyes wide with horror, hearts pounding in their chests. A ferret, nearby, fainted dead away, its tiny paws twitching as it succumbed to the chaos. And then, in the courtyard, Miruko landed with a thunderous grace, her poise so perfect it looked like she was walking on air, feet firm, shoulders relaxed, eyes blazing with uncontained wildness. She bellowed, voice echoing like a siren of chaos, "Where's my intern?" Her voice boomed across the courtyard, vibrating like a shockwave. "I got a goblin to adopt." 8:03 a.m. Izuku arrives from the distant shadows of the campus. Izuku approached like a man approaching destiny, calm, deliberate, yet carrying within him a storm of anticipation. His footsteps echoed softly against the paved pathway, the faint scent of mint and herbal tea lingering around him, an odd contrast to the chaos erupting behind him. He walked into the courtyard without hesitation, shoulders squared, eyes steady, as if he were already seeing the future unfold. "Hi," he said, voice gentle but carrying an undercurrent of resolve. Miruko grinned, sharp and chaotic, like a blade wrapped in a smile. Her eyes sparkled with reckless delight. "So you're the reality warping, mouthy gremlin everyone's been whining about." Izuku nodded, a faint smile curling his lips. "I am." She leaned in slightly, eyes gleaming with mischief. "You bite." "Usually," he replied, voice almost amused. Her grin widened, sharp and dangerous. "Perfect," she said, offering a high five, an invitation into the chaos. "Let's go ruin some systems." The air around them crackled with anticipation, an unspoken promise of mayhem, rebellion, and the appealing, reckless chaos that only they could create together. 8:10 a.m. Faculty group chat has a meltdown. Twilight Sparkle, Miruko is here. Twilight Sparkle, and she brought vibes. Power loader, she drifted through the lawn. Power loader, I just fixed that hashtag one big up, okay, but like. What if we let her have joint custody? Like weekends. Recovery girl, Izuku deserves a rabbit ant cementos, that child is going to learn parkour through glass windows. Nizu, Paw Prince, I support her. Paw Prince. 8:15 a.m. Aizawa sees the chaos. He stepped into the courtyard, sipping tea. Eyes half-lidded. Hair a mess. Voice rough. "Miruko," he said. "Aizawa," she replied, nodding. "Here to kidnap my student." "Not kidnap. Co-parent." "What?" She pulled out her phone and typed something fast. Ping. Aizawa's phone buzzed. Private text conversation, Aizawa and Miruko. Miruko, I want the gremlin on the weekends. Miruko, I promise to return him in, mostly, functional condition. Miruko, he needs exposure to chaos in healthy, punchable ways. Miruko, you're too soft on him. Miruko, let me take him to illegal rooftops and teach him how to scream constructively. Aizawa, 1. How did you get this number, Aizawa? And 2. You're going to launch him out of a cannon, aren't you, Miruko? Only if he asks nicely. Aizawa, 1 Sunday a month. Aizawa, if he gets any more injuries than normal, I'll sue for full custody. Miruko, 2 hearts. See you at the custody exchange. 2 hearts. Aizawa stared at his phone, sighed deeply, and sent a final text to the faculty group chat. Feral Dad, she has him 1 Sunday a month. Feral Dad, I don't want to hear anything. 9 a.m. First training session. They were gone for 6 hours. No one knew what they did. But when Izuku returned, his cloak was torn in a cool new way. He had 2 knives, a band-aid on his cheek, and a file marked, Corrupt Local Law Enforcement Patterns. Phase, he was humming, Flight of the Valkyries. A squirrel was wearing aviator goggles. He sat down in the lounge, drank an entire bottle of electrolyte juice, and muttered, I've seen heaven. It's a rooftop where she taught me to uppercut a man's soul. 10 p.m. Rooftop debrief. The night stretched out before them, vast and silent, as always. Under the blanket of stars, Aizawa found himself walking beside Izuku, the cool air brushing against their skin, damp with the scent of dew and distant city lights, a quiet hum of nocturnal life filling the space between them. They settled onto a patch of grass, the ground soft beneath them, the faint rustle of leaves whispering in the breeze. The sky above shimmered with countless constellations, cold and distant yet somehow NTNT in its eternal silence. Aizawa's voice broke the calm, low and steady, carrying a quiet concern. You alive? Izuku looked up at the endless tapestry of stars, a faint smile on his face, soft, contemplative, almost amused. I have transcended mortality, he replied, voice light with a strange, almost surreal confidence. Aizawa blinked, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. Miruko do anything dangerous? Izuku tilted his head slightly, eyes reflecting the starlight. She told me screaming is cardio, he said, voice dry and deadpan. Aizawa's brow furrowed, a touch of exasperation flickering through his exhaustion. That's not, never mind. They sat in silence, the kind that feels heavy and weightless all at once, filled with unspoken truths and shared understanding. Then, softly, Izuku broke the quiet. Thanks for letting her take me. Aizawa looked over, eyes calm but guarded. She's not replacing me. Izuku's smile softened, almost tentative. I know. But it's nice having more people who get it. Aizawa nodded slowly, the faint scent of night air and quiet resolve lingering around them. She's chaos, he said simply. Izuku grinned, eyes brightening with a flicker of reckless joy. So am I. A pause settled between them, thick with the weight of unspoken feelings. A gentle breeze swept through, rustling the grass and whispering secrets of the night. Then, quietly, Izuku added, also, she taught me how to punch a moving truck. A long, stunned silence followed. Aizawa's eyes widened in disbelief, voice low and incredulous. She what? And in that moment, beneath the shimmer of stars and the quiet hum of the universe, the world seemed to pause, caught in the tangled web of chaos, trust and the strange, unbreakable bond of 2 restless souls.